Folks, hello. Welcome to the honest to God random party generator because we have generated one hell of a random party today. Ah, jeez. All right.
Amen.
So I'm going to introduce people, then I will tell you what's going on, and then havoc and chaos will entail. This is going to be a very chaotic neutral party, so enjoy the results. You all know who I am. Next to me is Rob Conley, Bat in the Attic. Joethelawyer is the one who will not show his face, but he will definitely talk.
Too pretty for YouTube.
It's like a Medusa. If you see it, you turn to stone, so you can't.
Right.
Below me is Bill Barsh, Pacesetter Games. Okay. Below Rob Conley in the center square. So if you've got money involved in this game, that's where you might want to put it or not. Is Bad Mike. Douglas Cole from Gaming Ballistic. In the bottom of the center square, underneath Bad Mike, is the Greyhawk Grognard, also known as Joe Bloch. We may have one or two others coming as the show goes on. Yes, we may have a few full tic-tac-toe board. There's a drinking game involved that's on you. We don't anyone. But here's the background. Today, we were all surprised in that holy shit, what the fuck is going on? Is this April 1st? As I'm looking at my phone explode, because Wizards of the Coast decided to, I don't want to say capitulate, but it effectively seems to be a capitulation, and say we're not going to revoke the OGL 1.0. Not saying that they won't do it in the future. They haven't said that. But they did release the 5.1 SRD under Creative Commons, and apparently are no longer trying to hamstring every VTT out there. By the way, Cynthia Williams is also known as Greg Christopher. Just so we all know what's going on. So that is the quick recap. After this, my main responsibility is to catch up with holy shit, all your comments. I'm already probably like 10 minutes behind, and we've just started. So I'm going to throw the ball out there. Who wants to take the ball first?
I just want to get I want to get in and say I was first out of the gate with my video on this. I beat you. That never freaking happens. So I am proud of that.
Nice.
That is just awesome.
There.
Oh man, now I'm Cindy. I'm kind of half Cindy. And, what have I got? Alice? I don't know. No.
So let's lead off with Doug here. You were telling me earlier, Doug, about how much of a weight this. You actually had a real intense emotional reaction to the event.
So I was not aware of the extent to which I was carrying tension here. I mean, what is it? The line from my one of my favorite guilty pleasure movies, Broken Arrow. You make your plans, and I have. You keep your initiative, and I will. But you never share command. Anyway, John Travolta chewing the scenery for 2.5 hours. But the point is that I was not really aware of my own self how much the disruption in my plans affected me. I had big plans to hopefully follow up on the success of my one and only Old School Essentials Kickstarter that I ran last year. That was, most backers. It was just one of the best, most backers, most profitable, most everything. And just it's one of those things where, the above the waterline was looking good, and what I call the below the waterline, which is the internals and people who followed but didn't back, and total number of followers, just blew away anything that I'd ever done. So it was very welcoming to me to say, hey, here's a market that appreciates what you're doing. And maybe if it wasn't a weird product, these solo adventures, then maybe it would go even better. And something roughly 1.5, 2 times the size, 1.25 times the size of this Old School Essentials. If I could repeat that, all of a sudden leaving science and technology R&D is a no-lose proposition, right? It's a place where I could be like, all right, I'm not hurting anything by doing this, but I read this thing and then I see it validated. I'm standing in the supermarket, and my heart gets a little light, and I tear. I had no idea how much stress that the uncertainty of, okay, I'm going to do this, but am I going to have to do Worlds Without? I've been investigating new systems. I was looking at Worlds Without Number by Kevin Crawford, and I freaking love it. It's the great intermediate step between old school and it's got skill systems and backgrounds and all kinds of coolness. But that's a different world for me. I'd never played it, but at least it's not under the OGL. And then Old School Essentials, you sort of have to follow Gavin, and Gavin was taking a very let's not panic, but also we're not going to, you were in the SCA, right, Rab? If I told you once, I told you 100 times, never lead with your head.
No,
right? Don't get your head out in front of where the sword can hit it. And so, so it's one of those things where I can't do another OSE product unless Gavin's out there the right way, because it doesn't work for anybody. So now that we're sort of back on track, I've lost a couple of weeks, but I can go. I have plans. I can execute plans. It's now a matter of only content creation and layout and art direction and marketing and all the shit that content creators have to do rightly or badly without risking the wrath of a $1 zillion company coming down on you, or one of the things that and I'll shut up in a minute here, but one of the things that was interesting is on the DriveThruRPG Discord, they had an announcement, which was basically now that this announcement has. Well, let me. Do you mind if I'm going to go there and look at it, because So here's the says, Wizards of the Coast announced the OGL stands that is due to this, your titles will officially not be affected on any sites, whether it's DriveThruRPG or sister sites. We appreciate blah blah blah. Okay, so great. However, what's the implication of saying now that this is out there, you won't be affected?
That they were planning to.
They were planning to affect it. They were absolutely going to have to knuckle under if Wizards declared that this was, it was OGL non grata. You're dead. All of your channels are dead. All of your distribution is dead. All your stuff is yoinked, right? If you've thrown it into the GM guild, it's gone. So the implication there, the worst case scenario that people are like, well, what if, was absolutely true. Now, I asked GameQuest, the distributor in England, if Wizards deauthorizes blah, 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 will you stop distributing these? And they're like, no, we're not IP police. So at least there was that. But for people who were doing things through DriveThruRPG, absolutely they know what side of the bread their butter is on. And if this would have gone forward, that channel would have been closed to anything that wasn't under 1.1 or 1.2, whatever it was, by implication, right? That's not a direct statement. It's by inference that, oh, look, everything's good now. Kind of means that if you're like, I've seen like 4 episodes of Friends, right? Rachel sends Ross a message, says, I am now over you. And Ross is like, I didn't realize I was ever under you, or whatever, right? It's like you don't realize that the sword of Damocles was up there until you're told, oh, by the way, you no longer have fatal cancer. What do you mean no longer? So I mean,
here's the question though. I mean, you guys got these books. I don't publish anything, but it's like, Joe, you have, let's say, a box of 100 books, right? In the back is OGL 1.0A. Okay. Now, they're saying, oh, we're not going to touch it, but fuck you, Wizards. I don't trust them at all. So let's say 2 months from now they revoke it. You already have this box. It's not been published. It can't be published under 1.0A, and it's not been published under Creative Commons. What do you do with those books?
I take a razor and I cut out the OGL.
But the fact that it exists means it's been published, Joe.
Seriously,
I don't know if you know that,
I'm
but
doing that now. I'm taking out the OGL. My last 3 books haven't had an OGL in them.
Yeah.
They haven't had anything. I'm just publishing them. And
I don't know.
You can do that.
Yeah, that was not our take at all. Honestly, we were never concerned that our previously published stuff under 1.0A would ever be dissolved. Period. I don't think it's a flight Wizards ever wanted to have. For me, all this is more of a context of how this all came about, and and where it came from more than the what. The what is over, honestly, for the most part. But I find it fascinating how this actually occurred. And I think looking at the way that ended here today, I think the adults walked into the room a couple weeks ago and kicked somebody in the behind. I've been a shareholder in a huge, not $1 billion construction firm, but we're damn close for the last 35 years of my life. I know we have a lot of subsidiaries. I know how the corporate world works. There's multiple layers. We like to look at WotC and just think it's a bunch of guys in a room. WotC is probably several thousand employees, all kinds of management levels and everything else involved. And then you've got connections with Hasbro. I think what really happened here was the word came down. D&D needs to be monetized to a greater extent than it is. I think it freaked a bunch of people out. I think people reacted poorly. And I agree. I think D&D probably is under monetized. I know there's people may not like hearing that, but I think it absolutely is from a corporate standpoint. That doesn't mean anyone has to agree with me, but I believe
it's hard to monetize what people do for free.
I mean, if I can jump in and agree with you, there's two kinds of under monetized. There's the under monetized where you're trying to squeeze blood out of a stone.
Yes.
And there's monetized where you're doing so much cool shit that people are trying to throw money at you. And one of those is awesome, and everybody wins. So, and the other is what we just saw, right? So there's all kinds of ways of monetizing an IP where people are like, faster, you fool.
I agree 100%, and that's leading. That was exactly where I was going with this.
I bet. Sorry.
I think what happened here is that word came down to do this. Look, it's no secret. WotC products have been a disaster for the last 2+ years. They're not selling well. They're putting out bad product. People aren't buying it. This creates lower levels of management who are responsible for that to come up with reasons why they should exist and why they should be expanded. So their methodology to solve this problem was to go in and exactly like you're saying, was take the rock they already had and start squeezing it. Okay. There's another way, and that's called innovation and expansion. I think they are doing the expansion with their VTT stuff, which I really don't know anything about. That's not my world. But I just think what really happened here was people got out ahead of themselves. We got to keep in mind too, there are levels of WotC management here that probably know nothing, that run D&D to a certain extent, that know nothing about D&D. They don't know anything about the community. WotC doesn't do any community work whatsoever. They don't go to conventions. They're not involved with community directly whatsoever. They farm everything out. Even AL is farmed out. So they don't have a lot of connection. So that misstep that they took here, which I'm generous in calling it a misstep with 1.1, came back and just bit them so hard in the behind. And I think that got the attention of people further up the food chain. And that's why you saw what happened. And I think these surveys started rolling in. And I'm telling you that whoever stepped in said, we're not going to trust you down below anymore to tell us what's going on. We want to see it for ourselves, because the money loss was dramatic, right? With the people desubscribing to D&D Beyond or whatever else all that stuff is. So I think, and it's obviously the food it fed their competitors. And I think the writing was on the wall here. I mean, this survey was supposed to go 2 weeks. It didn't even last, barely a week. And they
real quick, Bill. Let me. I want to throw out some of the results of that survey. I have them right here. This shows you what an absolute titanic disaster this was. So here's 100%. Some of the survey. Here's some of the survey stuff. 80% of the people who took the survey do not want to publish tabletop RPG content under OGL 1.2. 88%. 90% would have to change some aspect of the business to accommodate OGL 1.2. 89% are dissatisfied with deauthorizing OGL 1.0. 86% are dissatisfied with the draft VTT policy. 62% are satisfied with including SRD content in Creative Commons, and add the majority of those who are dissatisfied asked for more SRD content in Creative Commons. Now, I want to bring up something. This isn't 55%. This isn't 45%. This isn't 70%. This isn't 75%. You're talking about 9 out of every 10 people said this sucks. Those are numbers. Look, if it was 50, okay, we got off on the wrong foot. Maybe we can save this disaster. But when you're looking at 88 to 90% are saying you effed up. I mean, honestly, I give them credit for saying, okay, he's up. I mean, this is not going to work because we have absolutely effed the bed. Can I shit the bed? I'm going to say shit the bed. They shit the bed. They absolutely
but more than
shit
that,
the bed.
The response was such that they felt they had we heard of companies with valuable IP. This is the first time I ever heard, other than the original OGL release, the company voluntarily released that much IP and with no restriction now. It's not even
again, I think the
once
adults
you say I'm
going to
steal everything you have, you have to really turn that ship hard in the direction.
This is why I'm saying I think a whole other level of executive management walked in here and stepped in and said, "We're done. You're done." I mean, you got a Dungeons and Dragons, which is essentially a bulletproof brand. Looks like Swiss cheese right now, and
where that came
somebody
from
effed up, and we may never hear about it, but I'm going to tell you, there's going to be people walking out the door with boxes in the next.
This came from institutional investors, guys. This started with the institutional investors saying, "What the hell is going on with our stock that we invested in you?" You get some heads rolling. I mean, that Indestructible hit up some institutional investor, and they commented that they basically said they have a lack of leadership essentially, and they're fucking up left and right. That's an institutional investor.
Have you guys
that's down?
Have you guys heard the actually, amusingly enough, have you guys heard the prepare 3 envelopes corporate joke?
Yeah. Yes.
All right. So real quick, CEO is going to leave. New CEO comes in. Old CEO says, "Hey, there's 3 envelopes in your desk." And he looks at the envelope. First one's, open in case of crisis. First crisis. He opens it up. It says, "Blame your predecessor." Oh, this crisis is the old guy's fault. Whatever. Second crisis. Open envelope. He opens it up. It says, "Reorganize." Okay, so second crisis comes up. They reorganize. They change the desk there. Whatever. Third crisis comes up. He opens it up. It says, "Prepare 3 envelopes." Right. So corporate stuff. So old McKinsey joke. Anyway, so the thing that I think, and obviously, not a lawyer, blah blah blah, but what this feels like to me is somebody sat down at a board level and said, if we litigate this, given that people like Ryan Dancy and the gentleman who actually wrote the law. So not the law, the contract, the original contract. I'm blanking on his name, but the actual legal counsel who wrote it. If these guys take the stand and
they
say,
can't. The lawyer.
I'm sorry, you're right. The lawyer can't. You're right. Conflict of interest. Yeah. But if Dancy and others who were involved in it take the stand and say, we were never. This was meant to be. Yes, the case that said that irrevocable and perpetual are not the same was 2006, and we did it in 2000. So perpetual was irrevocable then, and that's how we intended it, and that was on our website for 20 years. That we're going to get so dismembered in court that the end result of that case is going to be that effectively 5.1 and before is in Creative Commons anyway. So by doing it proactively, they just said, look, any way this ends, this is going to be what it looks like. So they might as well.
They put themselves in a bad place, because if there would have been a legal challenge, which the legal challenge would have been them actually having to initiate, it wouldn't have been someone suing them. It would have been, for example, we just continue to keep publishing our stuff under 1.0A, and because we believe that we're on firm legal ground, which is honestly exactly what we're doing. We already had a Kickstarter approved last week that's launching. That's 1.0A. We're doing it no matter what. Kickstarter already told us we could do it. We weren't going to stop. So they would have to come after somebody. And I think enough people gathered around and looked at what got put out and said, this isn't defensible, because the last thing a company like that wants to do is lose in court, even on a small thing. Even on a small thing.
And that's true of all open source.
They do. Okay. They don't think it's a big deal. We do. And they don't want to lose on something like that, because
It's
the
the death
whole
of a
house
thousand.
cards comes through.
They
It's a death of
avoid.
a thousand cuts, right, Bill? I mean,
Yes, it is.
Because once you sue you, Pacesetter, then you're going to have to sue everybody else.
Everybody
too.
and the brother, which I don't even want to get into the whole morality clause thing, but that was another train wreck. Like I said, in the corporate world, that exists, but not in an open format like this. You can do morality contracts on an individual basis. That's not an issue. People do that all the time. I hate to tell you guys this. It exists in our world, believe it or not, but not in such a public format like that. But to put it in an open contract was insane. I don't. Again, this is why I think lower level junior people were making decisions here and writing stuff that upper level management never even saw. Because I'm telling you, someone would take one look at that. If I know that from a construction background, I don't. Right. I mean, I dealt with some of that, but I don't see it every day. I even knew that was in.
Yeah, well, they woke up one day and they woke up the other day and they saw that. Why are we on NPR? What the
hell? Right.
What the fuck is going on? We're on NPR. Give me a phone. Give me a phone. Give me a phone.
I was just talking to someone about an hour ago, and I said, "What? You know what happened here is some WotC executive was walking down the street, and he just got hit by a Mack truck in the back, and he's like, what the fuck did I just get run over with?' That's what happened. Okay.
One note on the morality. Right. One quick note on the morality clause, because one of the I looked into this because some of my artists are from Europe and other places, and the statement of moral authority or whatever that went into that contract is actually the rule in France. It's called moral rights, and even if you sign a work for hire contract and waive copyright and all that stuff, you actually can never be stripped of your moral rights. So depending on what jurisdiction you're in, you don't even have to say that. Is that if you're say, oh, this person is doing bad things with my brand. But my point, though, is that it is an American company, and bringing in that is foreign to U.S. law. So doing that as part of that was weird.
Not really. It's foreign in a license agreement that is just not defined to one other contractor. Okay, the stuff like that shows up all the time in contracts. What it doesn't show up in is in a mass contract like this. Okay, because the license really is a contract. So this is where you don't really see something like that. And again, I just think I understand it. Again, I'm more interested in the why, and I know the why for the morality contracts is they just want to protect their brand. There's bad actors out there. We know there's been bad actors out there. There's been more than one. And this was an overstep, overreach, overbroad, over everything you can think of that never would have held up anywhere. That's where it came from. When I saw that in 1.2, I wasn't worried about it at all because I knew that was going to go out with the garbage. There was no way that was going to survive anything. It's not the kind of thing that works at all in that venue, which was 1.2. So
I have a question.
I'm surprised by their action today, but I'm not totally surprised, to be honest with you. And it's not like I read any tea leaves or anything, but
99% of people who stick their dick in a beehive do pull it out.
Yeah.
What about
exactly?
I'm worried about the 1%er there. Rob had something.
Bill.
Rob had something he wanted to ask Bill, real quick.
Bill. So, Pacesetter has his own line of RPG as well as working with, OGL content.
Yes.
How was this impacting you? What were you guys? When this all was going down, what did you guys have to consider?
Well, you're asking because we haven't made a whole lot of public statements about it. Other than one public statement we meant was we're going to continue operating exactly the way we've been operating. And if they want to come after us, then they can come after us, and we'll figure it out at that point. Because the people I've talked to are all in pretty much the same board. I mean, Kobold Press just launched a Kickstarter, for God's sakes. Nord just launched a Kickstarter. This was not. Look, I understand a lot of us are out there we're looking at other options also, and I think that'll continue. But we were not going to change what we were doing. And like I said, we made some phone calls. We talked to some people. For example, Kickstarter was 100% in our corner. They said, launch your Kickstarter. If Wizards can come to us, we're not going to pull it down. So
good for Kickstarter.
Now, by the way, folks, there's one thing from that announcement on D&D Beyond that we haven't touched on, but I think it's very eye-opening and a peek behind the curtain, because it's admitting something that most corporations don't want to admit. And this is the following paragraph where they talk about the Creative Commons license. This Creative Commons license makes the content freely available for any use. We don't control that license and cannot alter or revoke it. It's open and irrevocable in a way that doesn't require you to take our word for it. They are basically saying, we understand that we have no credibility at this point. Therefore, we have to give ourselves credibility in what we're doing by using the Creative Commons license. They have no credibility with their own fan base. That sucks as a corporation.
100%. Now, Mike, when you say look behind the curtain, I can tell you what you're looking at right there. You're looking at an announcement that came from somewhere else than the previous announcements. They either have a PR firm, outside firm working for them, where they might have been previously using their internal people. But you can just tell there is a divergence of presentation here in their language. There's no longer couched in "we both won" kind of bullshit language, right? That was I read that. That was, I can't imagine that coming out of any corporation worth more than $200,000. I mean, anyone with a PR firm or a outside counsel office is going to say, don't even think about saying something like that. That's why I keep going back to the why and where this stuff all came from. I'd really love to know. And I think someone earlier, it was DM Terry maybe said something. John Peterson's going to have a great book in a few years. We'll talk to some people and we'll get some better answers.
So I think we need to remember, and we
already said that he was already working on it.
I believe it. Some books write themselves.
I think we not here in this conversation or even recently, but we touched over the years in various podcasts, blog, that there was always a faction at Wizards that hated the OGL, just absolutely hated.
Of course.
And they seemed to wax and wane. So maybe, like you said, it's the mid-tier, but it happened to be the mid-tier dominated by those who thought the OGL was a terrible idea, and they thought they were just going to have their way this time.
Let me clue you. Who do you think hates the OGL back? Let's take a little poll here of all our panelists. Who do you think hates the OGL? Management or the creative side?
Oh, man,
the creative side.
Bingo.
No, because the creative side is embarrassed that they suck compared to.
They
can't
there's some great stuff
put
that
out
comes
anything
out of
that
WotC.
competes with what is coming out of what. Every single thing that WotC's created sucks ass compared to the stuff that's coming out of the independents. Look at the last comparison at all.
Look at the just look at the products the last 2 years.
So somebody that put out
third party is worse.
I'm not going to say the name of this person, but you might be able to guess that they have a third party book that came out last year that might have had something to do with Red Wizards. I'm not going to give away anything, but apparently their book sold better than the last 3 books that WotC put out. We're talking Spelljammer. What was the anthology book? No, that stupid, terrible anthology book.
Candlekeep something?
Candlekeep Mysteries is trash.
But Strixhaven.
Strixhaven's terrible.
And then whatever the anthology book that had diverse voices, it had a bunch of people that had never written an adventure before, but they did.
Candlekeep Mysteries. That was Candlekeep Mysteries.
Are you sure that was? Yeah.
No, there's
the whole pattern
throughout the whole
entertainment industry, which is that across the board, these big names are getting their asses kicked by independent people on the internet. CNN is getting less views than Joe Rogan. Everywhere you go, anytime an independent has a chance to stand up, they are so much better at it, so much more passionate, innovative, better design than anything's being put out by these legacy, old thinking firms. And this is just one more data point in the line. It's not. It's really not that.
And I would argue that our current setup, our creative ferment created by a bunch of medium to small companies, all doing their own thing. Because let's face it, if we really put the time in, really wanted to devote our hobby, we can come out with a top-notch book. I mean, Joe, you're pretty much a one-man outfit. And look at what you've done. Your books are like great production quality and content. And same with Doug, and same with you, Bill, you and your team. And so all these people that Wizard is trying to help, they have the opportunity to participate, and Wizard just tried to take it away from everybody, not just us old white guys, but the new kids too,
100%. And like I said, I'd be really curious. We won't know for a while, but where all this really did come from. It came, and I think it came from two places. I think the major push was from what we were just talking about, but they got cover when their high-end executives are saying we need to monetize D&D more heavy. That gave them a shield to say, oh, you want us to do something? Okay, we're going to do something. Here's our remedy. It was awful, just absolutely awful. Like, I think I talked enough about that, but I think Wizards, look, if Wizards want to fix things, create better content, innovate your game, which 1DD might do that, it might not. I don't know. Innovate your game, come out with great content, and get out there and talk. And I think one thing you will see them do over the next year or two is get back out into the community, because they are not. That company is so detached from the D&D community. It's insane. I don't even think.
Do they still not show up for Garrick?
I heard
they don't show up for Gen Con, right? They haven't gone to Gen Con in years, right?
Years. They don't go to anything. Yes. They hire a content or not. They hire a community manager. Well, all they do is talk to YouTube people. And I'm sorry, I know I don't even know what we're on right now, but but that's not going to get you very far either.
Suck.
Hey, so those of you with podcasts, I heard that.
There's nothing wrong with it, but it doesn't do what they need it to do. They don't have that connection to the consumer of their own game. I think, and that's a big problem. A lot what was said earlier, the loudest people in the room are not the people who are buying your product. So maybe you want to start listening to other people.
Sometimes it's the retarded folks that are loudest.
Greg, come on. Go Eric, Bad Mike. Those of you with podcast, I heard that Kyle Brink is looking for open for interviews, I guess. I don't know how you go and contact them, but one of the I can't remember it now, but it's not Indestructible, but Nerd Immersion or something has one lined up, and that's where I heard it. So maybe it's true, maybe it's not, but you might want to look into it.
I think you're going to see them reach out. I do.
Yeah, they have to at least try to cover make it seem like they didn't just crap on everything.
And part of sorry, go ahead, please.
I was gonna say they have to walk it back. I mean, they walked it back all the way into the other direction with this. Like Rob's saying, giving away the store and Creative Commons, basically.
Can we say? I mean, can we just at least throw this out there that how unusual this is in the business world for something like this to happen? Because normally it's everything is CYA. Okay, walk it back, but walk it back in a way. Do what they do? I apologize if you feel bad. So I'm not apologizing for what I did. I just apologize you feel bad about what I did. That's what you usually hear, right? You don't hear that. Yeah, we messed up so bad. Well, so I appreciate that at least, because that tells me that whatever happened behind the scenes, it was absolute total victory and absolute total defeat for two sides there.
I think, and I want to give a shout out to. I want to give a shout out to
somebody. Absolutely, just came in and said nope.
I want to give a shout out to the gaming community as well, and Ryan Dancy and the Wizards team of 2000 has a lot to credit for this. But the fact is, as Joe and Bill and Fraud God Games proved, you could do a lot with a small staff of people in the tabletop RPG industry, unlike, say, film or a bunch of other industries where it takes a lot more to make a AAA video game. So, we have a huge wellspring of not only creative talent, but people who know the logistics well enough to produce work that's on par with the megacorp. And, we did it. And maybe this is the future of 21st century economy. It just hasn't hit the rest of the economy yet, but we should be proud of ourselves that we were able to even do this. We were able to effectively say, "Go away, Wizard. We're going to do our own
who's
thing."
got the music going?
I mean, it would have been painful. I would have had to look at my monster list and my spell list and rename crap that I didn't want to really rename. And
It's
but
not a
we still
magic
could have done
missile,
it.
It's a magic projectile.
But we could have done it, and we had the talent to do it. So
Well, I'm
didn't know what they
interested
were
in hearing
trying
what
to.
people are going to do going forward on this panel, especially my personal thing. I'm about to release my last book under OGL at all, and I'm never going to be using it again. I'm never going to use I'm not going to use Orc or anything else. I'm just going to publish it under myself. I can't trust anybody to maintain whatever standards they claim they're going to do. But what are you guys thinking about doing?
I'm probably going to do a license. I will do a license under CCBY, and I will use Orc, and I will even throw the OGL in there. So it'll be triple license. They do it all. They do it all the time in the software world, so I know how to do it, and that would be my plan. So choose your own license on however you want to do. So, and the reason I do that is because some materials, it's all about permission, and some people only gave permission to use their work under the OGL. So I would be not sharing as much as I could if I restrict how people could use my work with OGL material.
Yeah, I think for now, I mean, we'll probably continue under 1.0A for a while until we decide. I mean, I need to see what Orc's going to look like. It's a ways off. Our issue is like probably some of you other guys too, is we've got projects in the pipeline. We're planned out for almost 2.5, 3 years.
Right.
So we're not going to change anything on a dime. It's just not going to happen. I mean, we've got projects that have been in the works for 2 years. We've got a lot of money in some of this stuff.
Right. Go ahead.
No, you're okay. So I'm just answering too long on the question. We'll probably stick with that. And then, I don't know that we'll just jump over to Creative Commons. We might. I don't know. That'll be a team discussion. But for now, I think our next book is definitely under 1.0A. So, but I don't know. I'm not my hair's not on fire as a lot, maybe as many other people on this thing. And I think it's all worked out here in the end. And but I think it is an interesting fact that we were talking about is how far they backtracked. Right? They didn't just say, "Okay, we screwed up, moving on." They said, we screwed up, here's a bone, and now we're going to try and move on. And I think, Eric, or you had something on the bottom here is like, D&D makes $100 million. What are they going to do to make more money? Well, the one word I can keep telling you is innovate. I mean, I know they got a big VTT thing coming out. That's going to make them a lot of money. I'm telling you guys, it's going to make them a ton of money. It's going to be state of the art. It's going to be something none of us have ever seen before. And that's going to make them some money. On the other end, I don't think they're just going to give up producing books. I just don't think they're going to do that.
My opinion is that physical products are not going to be where they are going to aim. They want to be able to update and rewrite and correct errata like evil orcs at a whim. 1984. This never existed like this. It was always like this. Take our word for it because we own the content. You just rent it.
So you're right.
But
there's going to be a balance.
They're going to keep a balance. Totally from the tabletop physical realm, but remember they're already now trying to cut out the middleman distributors. They're trying to sell direct, buy directly through Wizards of the Coast / Hasbro. Get your D&D Beyond content 2 weeks early. I'm sure when the VTT comes out, get your VTT content in that bundle. Therefore, they're selling at a higher price for them for the physical product. You are getting a bargain on the bundle and getting your content early, and they're not worrying about the brick and mortar stores. Think about it.
I just had a weird dystopian thought. Oh, go ahead, Joe. Go.
It's just because from their perspective, it's so much cheaper to produce PDFs than actual physical books. The overhead is just ridiculously, it's almost non-existent.
I just had a weird thought
from their
when it came to
perspective.
these books.
That's the way to go forward. Yeah, they don't care about physical books. They don't care about the books that I have on my shelf. They want to sell PDFs to people. They want to sell VTT tokens and stuff like that. Stuff that they don't have to have a warehouse on every continent for.
If only they were owned by, say, a company whose games are kind of in an older format and could be played online now through virtual tabletops in a larger mass than ever before, like Hasbro. Why aren't they investing in this stuff? Because they suck at planning, and they're stuck in the old way of doing things, and they don't want to move forward except at the slowest possible pace.
Oh, I'm inclined to disagree. I think that when you have Magic the Gathering and Dungeons and Dragons representing $1.2 billion in revenue and 72% of the profit of the parent company Hasbro, that they're not looking at this and saying, please, let's stay in the old world. They're saying, dear God, how do we become Genshin Impact? 56 million users a month playing a free game where they typically drop $1 to $10 a month each on cool stuff for their character. That's an open world that my kids are deeply invested in, that really would be something very easy to replicate, so to speak, using the massive depth of their existing IP. Right? D&D has deep lore, and my 13-year-old is all about the lore and exploring it and blah, blah, blah. And doing that in a platform that's all digital with Amazeballs graphics, if you've ever seen this stupid game. Right? I mean, there's the thing that I think that they really stepped on here is they're looking at that saying, that's the future. And as a matter of corporate responsibility, they could literally just sort of say, we don't really care about these tabletop grognards. It's a drop in the bucket. It's expensive to do. It's not high profit margin because of the distribution network, which is why I tried distribution. It sucked. I hated it. I'll never do it again. There's no point in this sort of thing. But their mission in life as a corporation is to stably navigate the transition from Dead Tree or PDF to digital online open world gaming with associated movies and tie-ins, and right. I mean, this gets back to I can't remember if this was before, but there are two ways of monetizing, right? And the one that you want is being so awesome that people are saying, "Shut up and take my money." Now, what they did was they said, "Well, this little thing that's probably worth $50 or $100 million a year to us, we're going to take that with us, looking at the $1 billion in cash every 6 months that this future thing is going to generate," because that's what Genshin Impact does. $1 billion in cash from these little transactions every 6 months.
Going all the way back to what pools of radiance and
right.
Old games. They've screwed up video games on D&D. They could have been killing it for you. Other companies have come in and done it with the OGL better than they can do it.
Better than they have done it.
They just can't do it.
They have not done it, right? I mean, they may not have the ability.
After 25 years, you start to.
Well, they certainly hired 350 new programmers to get it fuck done.
They've already got a couple $100 million into this. This is going to happen.
Right.
This is not a thing. They're not trial ballooning this. They've got.
Here's the question I would have.
But I do think they're still going to carry physical product through. It's just going to be a smaller segment, because I've never met a corporation that is going to take a profit-making segment and just eliminate it. They'll carry it through. But
I agree. I just think that
their main focus is going to be Their main focus is going to be digital. I mean,
and I think that the big mistake was twofold. One is saying, we don't need to springboard off of tabletop to reach the digital future. We can either just you had this little sandbox where we old guys like to play our tabletop games and say, I don't need more than the core books because I can DIY it myself and blah, blah, blah. Look, I'm a GURPS publisher, maybe the only one that isn't Steve Jackson Games. Trust me, I know about people digging in on the DIY thing. Why should I buy Doug's stuff when I can just make it myself? So, we're all over that. But what I think what they did was twofold. One is they said, we're taking that sandbox with us. And they didn't wait to kick the kids out of the car until we'd actually reached the vacation land. we pushed the kids out while the car was rolling. And that's kind of gets you arrested. Right? You push the kids out of the car once you're at Disneyland, it's fun. You push it out while you're on the way, that's a crime. And that's kind of what they did is they're like, we've got this great IP, we're taking it all with us. And they did it too soon. And I think if they would have waited to get a digital thing, and let's pretend that they actually successfully did it, because I think the point of haven't done it before is valid. But let's say that we actually get there. What they do is they say, well, we have this tabletop thing and it makes money, but it doesn't make a ton of money. We're going to do the digital stuff first and then use the lore that we develop for that and create tabletop books based on that.
Yeah,
you can just leave the third party ecosystem alone.
Here's the thing, Doug. Here's the thing.
Nailed it in the chat. Elder Scrolls and World of Warcraft stole what should have been D&D's birthright.
Bingo.
They've screwed up the brand management on this stuff for 30 years now. They've let everybody else come and feast on what should have been Dungeons and Dragons, and now it's diffuse, and they're way behind the ball. And this is just, you could debate about why they screwed up today, why they screwed up, why have they not been able to put this together? Why they just can't? They can't.
It's a lack of vision. It reminds me of when Marvel Comics sold the rights to Fantastic Four to some Italian no-name filmmaker for $100 grand.
To answer the earlier question about what
did we get out of that, Mike?
We're going, with different publishers.
We got a really terrible version
just
of Fantastic Four.
Drag it back to that. BRW Games started 2 years ago to disassociate ourselves from the OGL. The last 3 Kickstarter books I did were non-OGL. They're just first edition, and that's it. They're first edition, published, never had an issue.
Our upcoming game.
I have a. Sorry, we must have a lag. I'm just feel like I'm stomping all over people.
I don't know, man. We got 8 people. We may have a Gillespie coming at some point.
Okay, so we answer some of what to talk about what some of Doug and Bill are talking about. But here's the thing I don't understand. I mean, okay, so maybe I thought D&D profit because of the record year was half of what Hasbro turned over to or WotC turned over to Hasbro. So I guess it's only a quarter. But still, D&D had its best year ever because of the pandemic and the following year. And the thing is, all those people chose to play D&D despite the alternative. Yes, digital is lucrative. I'm not denying that, but they chose to play D&D and give it its boom year. So I'm thinking, all right, if I had some IP and I want to make a digital game, that's one thing. But to think I can convert that audience of both old and new, we're not, because of the boom, we're not just me anymore. We're a whole bunch of people, young and old. And how do you think they can convert it over to a digital experience?
But that's just it, Rob. They're not going to attempt to convert all us old 50-year-old guys.
They don't care about us.
They're not looking at us. They've got a whole new demographic they're targeting, which are not people who are using books for the most part. That doesn't mean they're going to throw it away, because there is a large value in the D&D brand to have books represent your brand. So they are not going to throw that out with the baby.
But here's a scary thought about the books. As you guys were talking about before, I had this weird and horrible thought. And that I remembered back in the day when I was playing computer games, I would buy the book that somebody put out. It was a big, thick book, all the ins and outs, the tricks. Sure. I can imagine the D&D 6th edition book is going to be a book on how to play and all the rules behind the D&D online version. Right? Here's a screen, click here for this and that. And secondarily, it might have shit about, and if you're an old fuck and want to play on the table, here's 8 pages of how to convert all that shit to a tabletop play. These are dice. You know what I'm saying? There could be a fucking game book now with a back chapter for tabletop. Holy crap.
So are we sure that the old stereotype that the RGB hobby is an aging hobby is true after the pandemic?
I think it's only true because they've screwed the pooch on rolling it out. I took 7 people from my work on a Friday afternoon, and I ran them through Alien module using a VTT, and it was awesome. These people had never played role-playing game before. They just watched the Alien movie like 20 years ago, whatever. They knew what it was. I just said, tell me what you want to do, and I moved them around on the little map. They thought it was awesome. They've been asking to play it again. If they had good brand management putting out VT as soon as VTTs came out. Every single message from D&D should have been, here's how to play this online. You don't have to meet with groups. Here's how to play it online. Here's how to do it in this new way.
They tried and they messed it up.
Yeah. They should have somebody running a YouTube channel and have every hour of the day a live cast of people playing D&D. They don't have it. They should have tons of marketing outreach that they're not doing, that everyone else is doing and stealing their profits. That's all it is. They're getting screwed by their own idiocy. Yeah.
No, it's because there's no continuity. And look, who's at this company now that was there 20 or 30 years ago? Chris Perkins, Kevin Crawford. That's it, right? There's no other creatives there. There's constant turnover, and any company works. When you come in new to a job, you have to make your mark on the job. You don't just say, well, let's just do what everybody did before that was going so well. No, you have to go in there and crap all over everything. And
you can listen to 100. You can listen to a 36 YouTube people over the last 2 weeks, and every one of them has got 5 people that used to work for WotC on their channel, because that's what their turnover is like. It's just constant.
Don't they fire people at Christmas
when you get that turnover,
like they every year,
they
time the fire.
Every December, it's like it's like here comes the axe.
All of us that have worked for big corporations, it's the same story. When the new management comes in, they want to make their mark, and even if it means doing
TSR did that too, didn't they?
2 management teams did. It was a failure. They're going to do it anyway because
they do every year. But going back to what Rao was saying, though.
Lorraine, welcome.
Whoa.
Hey, Greg. So I think going back to what Rob was saying, Rob, it's not that they're not interested in people in a certain demographic, so our demographic, for example. But our demographic has been playing this game for 40 years. We're used to playing with books. Most of us probably aren't going to change anytime soon. They're not going to try and change us. That's not a thing for them. They've done their studies, by the way. They would not spend the amount of money that I know they've already spent on VTT without studies. I'm just telling you, that's not a thing. So they know what they're doing. To us, it looks alien maybe or stupid, but to them, they've made a choice, and it's based on research and spending a lot of money on that.
This is not the first.
Well, I know the impact of VTT. It was very positive for our groups when I had a friend get assigned in the military, got signed to debate. We were able to keep my high school, and we also played into our 20s together because of it. But what I'm saying is that even if they're playing on a VTT, they're still experiencing tabletop pretty much how it's meant to be run. It's human DM. Sometimes it's theater of the mind. Sometimes they use instead of minis and dry erase, they're using whiteboards and pogs. But still, but what I'm thinking, those young kids picked to play D&D as it is. Not, yes, they do use a digital tool, but it's still D&D. If they go to a more video game experience with monetization and AI DMs and automated rule set, that's like if you were forced to use Dwarven Forge all the time, the face-to-face, it would get old really, really quick because of all the limitations of it. And there are AAA video games that do that kind of stuff far better than something a VTT even souped up could do. So it really...
Well, that's why I'm saying they're not going to eliminate their paper publishing end of their business. It's going to exist.
It's going to be de-emphasized.
But it's certainly right. It's going to be like 20 or 30% maybe of their business. The other 70% is going to be in the direction they're moving. And again, I'm not here to defend WotC and their decision making, but I can tell you from a corporate background of something along that size, you do not make decisions like that in a vacuum. They've been working on this for a long time. They know what they're doing. They have an audience. We may not see it because of our backgrounds very well. And I know full well I don't even barely understand VTTs, so I can't really talk to them, talk about them. But what I can say is I know business decisions along these lines, and they're not just trying to push us off, but we're not going to be the focus because they know where their ceiling is with that, right? their ceiling with where they're going is much higher, and that's what's alluring to them.
Bill, this is my theory. Here's my theory, and Eric and I talked about this in the show this week. They want to be Marvel Comics, and so Marvel Comics was just kind of limping along until the movies came out. The movies made so much money, they barely publish comics anymore. A good print run on an issue
very good
nowadays is
good
30,000.
man.
It used to be a bad print run on a comic was 100,000. So they're publishing hardly any comics anymore. They're making so much money off their Disney Plus contract, off their movies, that's what they became. This company wants to be an entertainment company. That's what WotC wants to be. Yes, you can play games over here, but we don't care if that's only 30% of our audience. We want to sell the movie. We want to sell the TV show. We want to sell entertainment. We want to sell pillows and cupcakes and
licenses.
I don't know, whatever has anything with a barbarian on it, a beach towel. And that's what they want to do. They want to be Marvel Comics, because Marvel Comics right now, they don't care if their comics don't sell anymore. And they don't. They're awful. They're terribly drawn. They're terribly written. All the good comic creators left and went independent. They all work for Atlas or Antarctic or Image. They don't work for Marvel or DC anymore because Marvel and DC has so much money tied up. So I will truly believe that's their aim. Is they want to become an entertainment company first.
Mike, 100%. They've got their 50th anniversary coming up, and their brand just got run over by a truck. This is why this got reversed as quick. Also, why this got reversed like it did today. They have to get into damage control and get this water under the bridge as fast as they can, and that's why they did what they did. And they're going to move forward with what they're doing. More power to them. It really doesn't, honestly, for the 9 guys sitting at this table, it really doesn't affect us a whole hell of a lot, honestly, if you think about it. I mean,
I think it's there's a lot more people. I think right now we have witnessed for the first time the tabletop hobby and industry has a destiny separate from D&D. I mean, we'll still be playing D&D, but we as a industry and hobby as a whole truly can chart our own independent course separate from whatever who holds the IP for D&D. In the past it was TSR and now it's Wizard. And we never had that before because everybody likes D&D. But now we can...
Nobody tell Chaosium that.
Well, exactly, Joe.
Okay. Most people like D&D.
No, but Rod, you're not entirely off there. I mean, the flagship of our hobby for the longest time, whether people liked it or not, was TSR. You went to Gen Con, you walk in, and there's this giant-ass castle in front of you. That was the flagship of our hobby, and D&D was the flagship of our of that. WotC has disassociated itself so much from the community. You're 100% accurate there. They are not. The game and brand might still be, but the game as we know it is not. And that's, again, why this movement that they're making, they've set this in motion a long time ago, and they're going to go through with it.
Well, I don't think they have the talent anymore anyway. Neither
that's
currently or in the recruitment. Yeah. They don't have the talent to make anything good anymore.
It is worrisome. I would, if I were them, that would be my main concern. Yeah. Why are these third-party publishers producing books? What's Kobold Press's book at right now? Anyone know? 560, 550? Their Kickstarter? 550 grand? Something like that right now?
Oh, probably, yeah.
It's over $500,000, we know that. Probably, closing in on $600,000. Why is
a little bit more and they have to register?
Why are their products out there in the market selling like that and WotC's products can't do shit?
Are you trying to tell me did a Strixhaven Kickstarter wouldn't make $500 million? Oh wait, it wouldn't make anything.
No,
it's all
not in a million years.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I have to disagree. It would make some money, but not as much.
Well, of course it would. But I think.
Bill,
have
you ever heard of Gary Vaynerchuk?
Yeah, that Kobold Press Kickstarter is going to close. I think it's going to clear $750,000. I don't have any. I might look like an idiot. It might hit $1 million. I don't know.
We live in a world where OSC Kickstarter made $750,000. So I mean, that just shows you right there. They're selling more than...
Wow, gee, what a coincidence! $750,000. Wasn't that the point where you had to report your income? No, get taxed on.
Hey, can I say something real quick? The guy below me looks like he's about to go on a rant, and I want to hear this rant.
I just keep waiting for him to just tell everyone to shut up.
Well, he looks like ready to blow up.
to.
So Greg, what's going on in your mind here today? What do you want to talk about?
Actually, if I look like I had a rant coming, I don't. I just I think the thing that struck me about all of this is I wanted to make sure that I think we're all sort of on the right side of history on this one, which I think is really important. And just I think we've already charted a course for ourselves, and that's completely separate from D&D. I don't see that happening in the future. It's already happened, and I think a few of you have already mentioned that there's a lot of talent, game design talent in the OSR, and we're putting WotC to shame in a lot of ways. So I'm pretty happy with where we're at. I'm still very happy with where we're going. There's there's so much diversity of thought across the OSR and what people are bringing to their games, their rule sets, their adventures, and so on. And that's the blessing of the whole thing. So, and you put all that together, and people have lots of choices. We've just had, people have commented on the golden age of gaming, and we're still in it despite this big WotC nonsense.
But what if
it's
wrong
easy to
kind
get
of
into
diversity, Greg? What if it's not the right diversity, the D&D diversity that we need to be able to grab you by the throat and choke you to death? That's the kind of diversity.
Don't poke the bear now.
Really
Yeah, he's poking the bear. This is a bear.
You're poking the bear.
You're setting up like a T-ball. We're not going to do T-ball here tonight. Okay.
Yeah. Well,
okay.
I mean, most of you will know how I feel about that sort of thing. I think part of. Yeah, on one hand, there's like a 5% of me that says, well, maybe they're trying to do the right thing, but it just comes across as virtue signaling, and it comes across as saying, well, we want to be the arbiters of what an ism or a phobe might be, and then there's a slippery slope of who adjudicates that and how far does that go, and it's just a nightmare. Let people do what they want to do. Some people have a darker imagination. That's totally okay. Some people are just plain vanilla. That's okay too. And there's room for everybody. So take that stuff and get it the heck out of here.
Some people are crazy enough to put a naked succubus in their monster manual in the 1980s.
Greg,
yeah.
we as a community are capable of handling this. Okay,
yes,
look what happened to Judges Guild. I did what I did. I did my due diligence, and I reported what I found. And everybody responded accordingly. And we had several other bad actors over the years. And to be fair, we had some, controversy over that seemed, not as serious. So we're not, we don't have it. We're not batting 100%. But I think when push comes to shove, and we spot somebody who's actually a racist and actually not doing the right thing, we'll call them out. I mean,
totally agree with you, Rob. Yeah. We're copacetic on that.
That's not an issue. The community will take care. The community takes care of the community. I mean that's not an issue. But I just want to I want to play a little devil's advocate here. Look, anything that they said they were doing with this stuff was absolutely ridiculous. But protection of your brand is a thing. But there's other remedies than the route that they were going. Because believe me, they will have to protect their brand going forward. It's just, and you know what? If any of us own D&D and we saw someone out there doing something absolutely insane with our brand, we wouldn't be happy either. Now, most of the time, this is
Bill, here's the problem with that. They were going to have to issue the licenses for the new OGL. There is no way a company is going to jump through every one of those hoops and put out material. So it was an absolute red herring. It was an absolute red herring. Nobody was going to produce.
That wasn't what he was
saying.
Like I said earlier on, no corporation on this planet is going to produce something like that and put it in a license. That was never going to happen. It was whatever idiot decided to put that in there. I can't even imagine how he got it through. And there was no way that was going anywhere.
I think that Bill's point is valid, which is quite simple, and is just any company, especially a big company that has a depth and breadth of IP, has to protect their brand, right? First of all, trademarks must be defended. You can't just say, "Oh, we'll get to that eventually." So a company that big has to be aggressive about brand identity. But I don't know that you, as to his point, you don't do that through a morality clause. You just say, "This is a bad actor. I'm targeting that one."
There's other remedies.
And they can win that. Right?
Well,
You
the
don't
other part
need to do it as big. The other thing that I wanted to jump in, sorry, then I'll be quiet.
Well, not only can they win that, they look good to the community.
They look good doing
by
it, right? Exactly.
That, right?
It's actually a benefit.
But they're helping us too.
Yeah.
When there's bad actors, they make all of us look bad. Look at there's been people who've done some absolutely. Look, there's people who've made mistakes. That's one thing. There's people who have consciously done awful things,
right.
And it's been taken care of in the community, and that's great. But it'd be even better for them to do it privately, and then we say, "Hey, look, WotC's sticking up for us also." But this was like what for the Yellowbeard movie. Let's punish them before they've done anything wrong, right? That's what that doesn't
what's
work.
The potential damage? I mean, Fatal exists. Is it hurting any of us? Has it caused any problem for D&D?
What was the worst?
I mean, people can
produce
the most vile crap. People just don't buy it.
The book of erotic fantasy. I mean, wasn't that the book of erotic fantasy was so horrible. I mean, how bad was that? Nobody cares about the book of erotic fantasy. Now. That was
the only thing I'm going to say, Mike, is we're only one really, really slow news cycle away from something like that hitting a network news channel. And that is not a good look for someone like WotC.
But you made the point is that then they're their hero because look how many people were cheering WotC when WotC is crushing Justin Lanossa like a bug. They were 100%. Like, oh, they loved it. It was great. I loved it.
Yeah.
Well, just imagine some idiot that tries to put out the next, Nazi role-playing game. And once WotC crushed them like a bug, it's going to be hosannas to the highest. I mean, people are going to be, they're
100%.
They're
even if they don't do legal action, they can get up on their bully pull-up and just rip them a new
they'll go legal
one.
in a second. But that's exactly my point, Mike, right? Is that they can look like the hero using another remedy other than saying, hey, we think you're all bad guys from the start. That is not a good way to start anything off with anybody.
I don't know. I don't buy a lot of those arguments. To me, like Dungeons & Dragons, role-playing games, generally speaking, they're not separate from popular culture broadly defined. And we're watching TV shows with mature themes. We're watching film with mature themes. We're reading novels with mature themes. We're inspired by those things. We bring them into our games. That doesn't make you a bad actor. And I just feel like there's room for everybody. And it may not be to my personal taste, but that has nothing to do with somebody trying to bring their imagination and creativity to the games they want to make.
Well, I agree with you there, Greg, but my point is more on the bad actors on the business side, let's say. I don't want to start throwing things out there because that's not what I do. But we all know there's been people out there who have done things. Honestly, you talk about some of these things, like the book of erotic fantasy, stuff like that. I honestly don't know anything about that shit because I just avoid it like the plague. But we can't avoid sometimes hearing about the bad actors who have done things. Yeah, Mike, thank you. Who have done things. I borrowed your copy. Who have done things. Let's just say on the financial end that are more of a problem. I think that's why, and I think honestly that's like Doug mentioned trademarks. I think WotC's much more looking down the barrel of protecting their brand from that kind of problem than it is some guy putting out some trashy book that no one buys. I agree 100% there.
If I might jump back to something a couple people were saying about Wizards not having the talent to do X, Y, or Z. One of the interesting things, and I think this was used as an example, but honestly, if you look at the type of people like we have here, people, Eric has said nice things about my ability to logistically deliver Kickstarters. If you're looking for talent and you don't think you have it in your company, well, we got a farm league of $500,000 and less, AAA ball or minor leagues. Okay, who's going to be your next brand director? Go get that guy who by himself in his basement turns an idea into a $750,000 business. Go get the guy who managed to fulfill a $6,000 backer Kickstarter and work out those logistics on his own. Put that person in a position of decision making power.
They don't get in those positions because that person, by his very nature, his or her very nature, is an entrepreneurial spirit. They'll never survive in that kind of a structure. Wizards of the Coast.
They much
Well,
rather have
not.
social media posers who don't actually play the game or give anything back to the hobby.
That's right.
But that's I mean, whether or not they have it within their DNA to actually make that decision, who you hire, right? Your human capital is ultimately your only capital, right? 100%. The people that you have working for you, if you wanted to say we're going to put gamers in charge of gaming, and sometimes that's a dangerous thing. You don't put engineers in charge of a business company, and sometimes it's not so good. Sometimes it's not so good to have engineers in charge of an engineering company. You need some people who can do the finances to put the brakes on some of these ideas. But I mean, honestly, there's a pool of talent out there that can be picked.
I mean, Doug, my day job is doing training at a very high corporate level, and you would not believe the number of Fortune 100 companies that have people who almost exclusively are promoted from within. They don't look for outside talent. They don't try to bring in new blood, and they're constantly having to deal with the problem of being behind on. Well, you know, I come into a company sometimes and I see stuff that's from the early 2000s in what I do, much less what they're doing. I mean, like they're so myopic and focused within at the top level, even within huge companies. You'd think, oh, no way, those guys are on top of it. You know, no, they're promoting from within. They've got people who have no idea what's going on in the next company over. And they're not interested in looking outside of their own tower.
So I worked for McKinsey and Company for a couple of years, and then I worked for Seagate Technology for 20 years. Right, I was a manager and you know, a manager at Seagate because of the number of people who reported to me and the scope of my responsibilities would be a director at many other smaller companies. I've seen the inside of the corporate world. I've been in the C-suite. Not for very many years, because I was too opinionated and didn't listen rather than talk. But I learned that lesson.
That goes to my point. That's why these fuckers who are creative in the outside world can't survive too long in those environments, dude.
Right.
You know what I mean?
But I guess my point is that some of these things, in terms of who you hire and why you hire, that's a policy decision, and it may be that Hasbro and et al. Is incapable of making the kind of change to act like a startup when you're a $5 billion or whatever $1 billion company is WotC. That's hard, right? The company that I worked for tried it. Oh, we're going to have a subset that's going to act like a startup. And we all looked at that even internally and said, no, we're not. The kind of risk-averse behavior that you get into as a big company, you don't make the kind of calls you do that you say, well, you know, the 10 or 15 of us are just going to go for broke. And if it doesn't work, then, well, we'll do something else. That's not what big companies do. That being said, who you pick to do the work is going to be your destiny, and they could pick different people, right? If they say, hey, here's our best book lately, the most best-selling book was outsourced to that third-party company. How much money do we have to fling at them to bring them under our umbrella? Happens all the time, and people say yes all the time.
Well, I don't want to go down the rabbit hole on this, but if the decision about who to hire for doing some job is not who's the best person for this job, but who fits the corporate criteria that we've developed for how we're going to hire this job, you're never going to get the best person in that job. You have to actually go out and look and say, I'm going to hire the best writer and the best designer and the best map guy, whatever it is. I don't care who they are. I want the best person. I don't care about their personality. I don't care what they say on Twitter. I don't care what their skin color is. I don't care anything about them. I care about their output. That is what we have to care about. And that's why independents are so successful, because output is the only thing that matters.
So I want to be careful there, because most independents fail. Most independents break even or they're doing it as a hobby, right? I mean, so you know, I mean, we can say, you know, yes, there are some great independent companies out there, and all of us either are or maybe hope to be, but you know, most picking the people who actually get it done is already a step above a lot of stuff. Anyway, this is a corporate HR discussion that we don't need to have. I apologize for the rabbit hole. My primary point is that the third-party publishing ecosystem is profoundly good for the big dog, because if they chose, they could hire out of it.
They've done it before.
Once again,
they've done it. The very first book, right? Horde of the Dragon Queen, wasn't it
But
done by
it
Steve
wasn't-
Leonard?
It was by Steve Winter and Wolfgang Barr. Yeah, it was actually good. It was good too. It was actually,
but they weren't staff writers; they were under contract, right? Because they can't produce in-house, and they some strange reason they don't want to actually have people in-house producing work. I guess they can say down the line, "Oh, wait a second. Oh, Steve Winter, didn't he make the Hadozi slaves? Oh no, wait, we did." But we'll blame it on his generation, because they don't want to. They don't want these people within the company.
But once again, this is a comic book parallel. Let me explain to you. So, so for years and years, you had comic book writers and artists like John Byrne and Chris Claremont and all the people that worked and Jack Kirby and Steve Ditko. They created these great characters that are now worth billions of dollars, and this is what they zero bupkis. So the writers nowadays, rather than create something very creative for Marvel DC Comics, when they get a good idea, they go form their own comic company, or they go work for Image, which gives them full rights to their characters, or Antarctic. They don't do that. So what happens is, this is why companies like Marvel and DC haven't put out any good comic books in 15 years. Because now with all the money the movies are making, why would you create a character for Marvel and DC and have them get rich when you could just go to your own, or form your own company, or go to another company that gives you creative rights to your character and just do it there and then sell your character? I could probably name 15 movies right now that you don't even know were based on comics. And you're like, really? That was based on a comic? It's because it's an independent creator that went off and formed his own company and are making all the money from that now. Guys like Mark Miller, guys that, Ed Bruford or Ed Brubaker. These are guys that create really, really good comics, but they don't do it under Marvel or DC Comics anymore because they don't make any money doing that. And that's exactly what's happening right now in the game industry. Why would you want to create something great for WotC when you can go off on your own and run a Kickstarter and make $1 million make $1 million? That's your money. It's not WotC's money.
That's in video games too. You got bigger video game designers are setting up their own studios.
Video games, another place this is happening. Absolutely right.
Pattern.
Correct. Yeah, why would they want to work for a big company when they can go form their own video game company, get a couple of buddies, do the coding themselves, and then boom, they're the ones making all the money. This is no different than what's happening in comics and other hobby industries.
But 9 out of 10 of such companies don't make the money, right? The fact of the matter is the attraction of a salary job is that it's a salaried fucking job. You're going to be employed and you're going to have the security, et cetera, et cetera. And having left that, a six-figure job to be a game publisher, right? The way that you start with make a small fortune in games, have much larger fortune and work your way down, right? So having attempted that, right? If somebody came to me and said, hey, you can work in the games industry and arrange our logistics and blah, 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 and here's a salary that would help my family, I would have to give that serious thought, right? And not having my next meal be dependent on everything going right and there's no shipping crisis and my artists don't decide to flake out. That doesn't happen much because I have a great team. Or an author doesn't break a leg and I can't, I threw out my shoulder, I can't type. Right? Okay, I guess or someone has a say, I'm not going to finish this manuscript unless you agree to these changes and things, even though it's work for hire, whatever, right? All the things that happen when you can only serially produce content. Right? There's a damn good reason to go say, look, I need a salary job and I'm going to do this for fun as a hobby and not have the offshoot be the only thing that I can pay my bills.
Nobody's going to take that deal.
So many people doing it for free. Yeah. There's not a lot of free filmmakers, out there making free stuff and producing it for bare minimum. The production costs of RPGs are next to nothing. That's why you can work really hard to break even, like you start with a big fortune and come down, because there's so many people out here willing to do it for nothing that you have to compete with those people. You have to lower your prices. We're still at the same pricing structure as we had in the 90s. There's been massive inflation. People still only want to pay $20 or $30 for a book. It's crazy because there's so much free work out there. Every single person on this podcast underprices their work. Every single one of them. They underprice their labor, underprice their stuff because they love it.
I don't put out anything, so
Somebody
not me, baby.
Joe,
You should see me when I'm at that. When I'm at the midnight auction, man, I'm going for top dollar. Let me tell you right now.
So at least
Milks
for me,
us for everything we
I
got.
know what I'm worth. I know
what I guess one of the things that I've told, because I'm fairly open kimono about how this stuff works. What I tell my limited audience is that you guys, if people want 300-page releases from me, like I did a bestiary recently that was 200 pages. I was like, if you want stuff like that from me, then I need 2-3x more backers. I can make profitably 32-page, 48-page small stuff because you're still on the steep end of the pricing curve. But the price that you can charge for something seems to go as a square root of the page count. You need 4 times the page count to get 2x the sticker price, but you're paying 4x for development costs because it's a linear cost per page, but a square root pricing. So I mean, that's the thing is what people want is big thick books. Some of people want big thick books, but
Not Matt
you
Jackson.
need thousands of people to make that work.
not Matt Jackson. First Matt shot in for the night.
Hey, he's not even here, but I had to take it.
I heard it. I know.
Well, I mean, look on the example I made of comics. I mean, this happens in gaming too. How much money are the Hickmans making from Strahd von Zarevich? 0. How much money is Ed Grimwood making from the Forgotten Realms now? 0. I mean, these are guys that created $1 million brands, and they're getting nothing for it now too. So it's not surprising to me at all that the best stuff is third party, and that the major corporation out there is probably putting out some of the weakest material ever. Nobody is going to go out on a limb. I mean, the stuff that WotC released in the last couple of years is amateur hour, guys. Have you read any of it? It's absolute amateur hour. The best release they've had in the last few years was Tales from the Yawning Portal, and all that was a bunch of classic modules converted to 5e.
It's a great book, though.
It is a great book.
It was
I
a great book,
agree.
but it was old adventures. They're going back to the
Right.
Giants well for the 1 millionth time because they haven't created anything worth creating in the last 20 years. Oh, let's just do the Giant series again.
Yep.
Come on, guys. Give me
Why
something
wonder?
here.
I mean, honestly, why is that? It can't be just because, like I said, it's been 20 fucking years since they put out anything really spectacular. The only good
It's the
third
same-
edition
Joe, it's the same
module
reason
they put out.
No, this is a cultural problem. This is a cult. And when you were talking about the hiring thing earlier about where they get their people from, this is a cultural problem of their in-house creative department, and they've got some wonderful people there, I'm sure. But their ability to innovate at Wizards does not exist. Like Mike said, when was the last time they put out something truly innovative and unique? When was the last time they put out a new campaign setting that was just you said, I have to have this, right?
Eric and I know the answer to this because when we had this question, what was the last campaign? Can anybody else? Okay, I'm going to ask the question. What was the last new campaign setting that WotC released in what year? Does anybody here know?
I don't know the year, but it was
about 20 years ago, right? About 20 years ago.
Eberron in 2003.
There it is. Yeah, there it is.
In 2003, 20 years ago. They have not released a new campaign setting in 20 effing years.
Let me ask Joe.
And that wasn't
Bloch.
theirs. That was done by Rich Baker, right, Bill? I can't remember. Rich Baker?
Yeah.
Who did Eberron?
Just quickly ask Joe Bloch. Joe, what was the last great setting they put out? In your opinion,
this is going to be a hard question.
Very hard. We had a good one
Uh-oh, Joe's doing a dance.
Greyhawk, there you go. It was Greyhawk, yes. But I mean,
I think, guys, that they get talented people all the time at Wizards, but the problem is, I think it's a numbers game. I mean, we saw the output. I looked at that open D&D letter that was out there, and I was looking at people who were saying that there were publishers. And there's like 1,000 of them. I mean, I worked out the numbers, and I threw away 25% of them as something that could have been something else, and there was still hundreds and hundreds of people who. And I did spot checks, and they got 1 or 2 things out there. And it's like, how can you compete with a staff of 12 people versus 1,200 people all focusing on the same rule system that you are? You just can't compete.
Well, Wizards
relative quality. I mean,
Wizards' problem is that they're self-sterilizing. So their content is they're self-referential. So they're not pulling in different ideas. They're not pulling in thinking more broadly. It's like Star Wars. It's just self-referential to the point that it's not really new. It's referencing itself and it's getting stale. And then the other part of it is when you do that and then you layer in sensitivity reading and you're taking out the texture and you're taking out the grain of the material, now you've double self-sterilized, and that like it's just not interesting at that
Greg,
stage.
100%, Greg. Could you imagine if they just if forget all their cultural stuff, right? Let's put all their societal biases aside right now, and they took Dark Sun, remastered that a little bit, and put that out as a new campaign setting. It would be freaking awesome.
Yep.
They don't need to come up with a new one. They could just fix that one a little bit. You don't need to really change anything. Just update it. That would be a bestseller for them. But they won't do it because it doesn't fit a corporate narrative right now.
Mm-hmm.
And so they're, like you said, they're self-referencing, but they're not even self-referencing their best stuff that they have in their IP portfolio. They've got a massive IP portfolio, and not just TSR stuff. There's shit that
they have this massive portfolio, yet every time you see it, the evil god is Ayuz. Loth is in there, and there's they come back to, like you said, the same cultural. They're going to redo the Giant series for the 85th time. I mean,
that goes to everything.
If you took the last 10 years, let's say the last 10 years of publishing in RPGs, you file all the names off. And you don't look at production values because a lot of WotC has, I will say, their production values are probably better than average. And you just took it on material alone and you pile those books up. Look, there's Greg's stuff is going to be better. Rob's stuff is better. Joe's stuff is better. Bill's stuff is better. It's all better than the stuff they've been doing. I mean, they're going to have, if you took the top 100 books of the last 10 years, they're going to have maybe one or two books in there, and they're not going to be towards the top. They're going to be towards the bottom.
That goes across every form of entertainment. That's everything, Mike. It's movies and everything else. All they had to do is copy, remake, and do some swapping around. That's all they know how to do. And I think it goes deeper than
every movie nowadays,
talented heads of talent or curl. It goes to our culture in general in this country. And that, I hate to sound like an old fuck, but nobody reads anything of the classics anymore. All that they know is what they saw. And the people who wrote and created, like directed great movies or whatever, they were steeped in reading books, classics of all types, right? And they brought that experience. They had an intuitive knowledge of various things. And they brought that to the screen. Now, when people are just looking at the screen and the video or the movie or the show, and then they go to create something else, it's like cloning, where it gets deteriorated the more you clone. That's all they're doing. And the quality of the cloning goes down because they just don't know anything about what underpinned the thing that made it so good, because they're fucking morons.
Well, and it's very difficult to have an epic struggle between good and evil when you can't depict evil.
Right.
There's no such thing as evil. You can't really be good because everyone is evil, but they're not willing to get in the mud and roll around with the kind of grit that you see like in The Black Company. Right? So you can do Everything is Shades of Grey and do it amazing when you do Vietnam as a fantasy story, or somebody's perception is Vietnam as a fantasy story. But if nothing is really evil because we're all shiny, happy people holding hands, where's the conflict? Where's the conflict that drives the story? Well, we went and we had coffee and we hung out and I mean, it becomes Seinfeld in a way, right? Which a lot of people liked. I didn't like it because I actually had Kramer was one of my roommates, but when it's a story about nothing, it's hard to invest in grabbing your lightsaber or broadsword and charging into the horizon and saying, I'm going to make my last stand. Few will stand against many, and that is what will be remembered. I mean, that was cool. That was a good speech, right? But nobody wants to remember the one person who stands out. So you need to have the struggle, except if everything has, what do they call it? A muted dynamic range. Right? It's like a symphony. You have the 1812 symphony, but they turn down the gain. That's just not fun.
Doug, it goes deeper. It goes deeper than that because Bill mentioned something about cultural, and I thought he was going to go this direction. But if you look at art entertainment nowadays, everything is a sequel or it's a remake of something that went before, or it's a TV show. I mean, look at the movies. So just someday take the movies that come out now. I did this one day. I was absolutely blew my mind. I looked at the movies coming out for the year, and 9/10 of them were a sequel to another movie, an old TV show they were redoing, or an old movie they were remaking. I mean, it was unbelievable. It's like they creatively bereft, but I think a lot of it is fear. Because if you go with something that's already succeeded, you're going to probably succeed in a lot of cases. Now, maybe not as well. Like if you make the 13th, Rocky movie, it's maybe not going to do as good, but at least you have a built-in audience. They're so scared of putting out anything new and different, and I think that isn't just entertainment. That's everything. And that's
have you seen Free Guy? Have you seen Free Guy, the Ryan Reynolds movie? Free Guy, the blue shirt guy.
Yeah, that was
Ryan Reynolds, right? Why would I make a new thing when I could do a sequel?
So
there's a lot of good. There's a lot of truth in that movie. I liked it.
I read an interesting analysis of that. What's going on there? So apparently, it's the loss of the mid-range movies. So everything has to be either this really low budget thing or this really high budget. So if you're going to make it high budget, you're going to play it safe. And it used to be we had a broad range of movies, so somebody could risk a $5 million movie back when they still made $5 million movie, and when the blockbuster was only $100 million. But they could take risk at that level. So it looked good. It was a little risky. A lot of them didn't work, but some of them really did work. But now there's like, you got $1 million movie, and you got your $300 million movie, and what's in between,
But listen, that's why every movie's pitched like, okay, it's a rom-com, but it's kind of like Silence of the Lambs. But I mean, they all they do is reference other movies to make you understand the new movie. Instead of
let's give the ball back to Eric for a second.
I'm going to take it away from the movies for a second.
Yeah.
When you look at TV, and the only reason why I've been watching commercial TV is because I've been watching football games because it's playoff season, and I was like, Equalizer, Magnum, Night Court. Fucking Night Court. All right? Bring it back with some actors who haven't died yet. God bless. I don't know how
Joethelawyer cat's
still kicking, baby.
Yeah, I know. But here's the thing.
Yep.
That's the same thing that Wizards of the Coast is doing. Let's play it safe. We'll bring back Spelljammer, but don't actually use a set. It's a tack on to whatever people are using. Look, what else we can't bring back Dark Sun, but yeah, Revoke. Oh no, holy shit. Take out the gypsies. Scrape out anything that anything that might be offensive to somebody. They don't have imagination anymore. They're not willing to take that step with setting.
Eric, you're right. TV. They don't even need a lot of imagination. I mean, it's also about competence too. So if I were to tell you, hey, I got this idea for a movie, there's this shark going to swim around by a beach and he's going to eat a few people. No one's going to want. They're going to think I'm Sci-Fi Channel and some crap, right? Steven Spielberg turned it into $1 billion brand and enterprise.
Yep.
A single idea of a shark swimming around eating people. Okay.
Lest we forget Sharknado too. Don't forget Sharknado.
Okay, there it is.
I mean, let's just
we want to, but we can't forget it.
Don't forget, Peter Benchley had a best-selling novel.
Yes.
Steven Spielberg had skill,
but competency, right?
Yeah,
exactly.
Competence. Yeah.
You bring people in with competency. You don't even need to have the most innovative idea in the world. You just got to have competence.
Just to jump in there on Rob's point, there's a reason why the historical epic doesn't exist anymore in Hollywood. We had a great run of those in the 2000s and early 2010s, and they've disappeared in part because of cultural matters or narratives they don't want to forward anymore, right? And then the other part of it too is, I see us a little bit like you can be Tim Burton. So Tim Burton does remakes, but he does them in his unique style, and people want to go see that to see how he's going to take a timeless tale or narrative, but convey it through his vision. And so there's always that room for that expression. But again, when you get caught in when you're in a bit of a circle jerk like WotC is, then you keep bringing out stuff that's not that doesn't inspire you to play it at the table on the regular.
Well, and that exactly. So, I mean, we're just going around in circles here. Like, Disney's done all these live remakes in the last 10, 15 years, right?
Mhm.
Most of them are god awful. But, you know, like the reason that whole thing started with them is because they started out really one of the first ones they did was Maleficent with Jolie, right? That's her name.
Angelina Jolie.
That's a fantastic take on that.
I will admit I enjoy the hell out of that one.
It's a fantastic take on Sleeping Beauty. It's just it was brilliantly done. And then they crapped the bed on the next like 7 or 8. There's no innovation whatsoever.
We took our one chance for the decade. We're not going to.
Yeah, they just started throwing them out there, right? Because we hit gold with this, but now they got risk averse.
Right.
They just absolutely just said
they're ideologically driven. It is what it is.
But it can be done, right? It absolutely can be done, and they can do it. They don't. I'd love to see them innovate, come up with some brand new stuff just out of whole cloth. I'd love to see that. But WotC can absolutely still take stuff from their existing IP and put the right people on it to innovate it and just do something special.
I'm going to get a little pie in the sky. I think the last decade, the middle of the 21st century, the next 20, 30 years, with the advent of AI assistants, not going to be like they think for themselves. They just allow people to do more. And that we're going to finally see what we can do in tabletop, because as we mentioned, one person can make a pretty decent book and, be innovative. Well, and while it takes hundreds of people to make a AAA film. But what happens if you can make a film as good as, say, one of the Marvel films, one of the Avenger films, but it only takes 2 people to do it? What we're going to see in that day? We're going to see all kinds of crap, but we're going to see some damn good stuff, because now they're not beholden to this huge. They don't need this huge image structure, and they can take risks. 2 people can take the risk that 1,000 people can't. And I think that's one of the great things about our hobby, is that the future kind of a way is here for us. Digital technology, print on demand, PDF, all of that.
Well, Rob, the AI is just an extension of all the other technologies that have brought production costs down. That's all it is. Production cost is going down. In every entertainment media, it's going down.
Yeah.
You can film a movie on an iPhone now that has better quality than a movie made on super professional equipment in 2000. You're getting to where you're having such amazing technology in the hands of everyday people, and they're going to use it. There's always been a limited number of people with this amazing creative talent. We've always just had to go through these huge organizations. In the end, you get to find, Star Wars, it comes down to like 5 people that really put all these pieces in the right place. We're just spreading all this technology out through the whole society so we can put more people with this stuff, and we're getting great results.
I'll go down a new rabbit hole.
Yeah, they're doing all kinds of stuff with the existing things. They suck at it. And
say what you say about the new Star Wars series, but that surround thing that they got going for them, they allowed them to try a lot of different things. No, obviously not all of it stuck, but I could see there's a difference, and that it maybe this current run of Star Wars series isn't it, but somebody's going to use that to make something amazing.
Yeah, maybe
as long as Ryan Johnson isn't anywhere in the neighborhood, it'll be fine. So
there it is.
Amen.
It's interesting. I don't disagree with it. That technology has made things more available and more accessible as far as price point goes, except in one particular area, which we can start talking about maybe, or maybe not, and that's printing actual books.
Makes perfect sense.
Oh yeah, you still need capital.
You need a lot of capital right now.
Well, what about print on
producing
demand?
A hardcover book right now has gone through the freaking roof.
I don't.
But what about print on demand?
We don't do a whole lot of print. We're not really a POD company, so I'm sure it works for other people, but we mostly do things the old-fashioned way.
Joe, you're a big POD. That's your sole thing, I think, right? For the most,
that's all I do, and my overhead to do a new book is like I have to pay for the art and I have to pay the editor, and I got a book, so it's not.
Right.
I mean, in traditional, you got to have a warehouse and you might be right. But in terms of print on demand, that it is not at all the case that you need to have a lot of upfront capital.
Yeah, no, I'm not saying it's a bad business model. I'm talking about publishers
I have
like
a print run.
Right. So there's, publishers like us, I know Frog God and several others. I mean, we still, we don't.
So let me ask you this, Bill. Why do you do print runs? Where is you print 1,000 books, 2,000 books? What happens to them?
Well, mostly Kickstarter. So mostly we're using Kickstarter for our large hardcover products.
Oh, okay. So you have a plan to sell your wares, but you need a huge quantity of books all at once.
So, right. So Rob, we're also going for high. We also go up just our base really likes high end books. The print quality, the binding. I'm not saying you can't get that out of Pod, but because you
can't get that out of Pod.
But
go ahead, say it.
I agree. I agree. So just, if you want to do that, then you need to be able to.
That's kind of our customer base kind of almost demands that. I mean, that's just where we come from. But we need books for conventions. We do a lot of, not a lot, but we do go to several conventions. Our website we do pretty well directly through our website also. So we have to have stock. I mean, it is what it is. And look, there's a lot of great things about POD. As a business model, I actually kind of love it actually, but it just doesn't work for us just because we didn't come up that way. That we've always been either print limited edition copies of books and all that kind of stuff too. So there's whole other things that we do that keeps us in that arena. That price has gone through the roof. I'm just telling you, a hardcover book today versus 4 years ago, it's gone up at least 300%. It's crazy.
That's the market force that's kind of temporary.
We're really hoping. Yeah, I mean, I'm assuming that's going to drop at some point, but
there's been international shipping
pretty high,
crisis, and there's all kinds of paper problems.
And paper is the big problem.
If you really want to see prices, try to build a new fence around your property. Lumber prices are insane. So it's just a matter of supply being disrupted for a little while.
But I mean, to Bill's point, and to answer Rob's question absolutely directly, when I do my printing in Latvia, because I use Eastern Europe rather than China, because the markets that are physically closer to Eastern Europe than the halfway around the world from China. But it's a couple $1,000s in setup costs, and then the marginal cost per book just crushes after that. But you better be able to get those first 500,000 books to offset the setup cost.
And we print domestically. We don't even go overseas. We print almost all everything we've ever.
Oh, okay. Well, that's like a factor. At least to me, that's a factor too.
Yeah.
Now, what about what Columbia Games does with their Harn stuff? They own a printing.
Well, so does TrollLord.
I mean, when will the cost of those drop down? I can't imagine you won't need some capital, but it won't be an unreasonable amount of capital.
No, I'm sure that, like I said, I know TrollLord has all their own. They print all their own books.
I don't think they print all their own though. I think
I shouldn't say that, but I know they produce in house.
Yeah, definitely.
A certain segment of their product line. Yes.
Yeah, but
I don't know that they're doing all that now.
The thing that would be really interesting to see.
Mike would know, but he's not on right now, so he must have ran out of whiskey.
The thing that would be interesting to see for print on demand is if you ever see better paper stocks and, frankly, the sewn binding. Because the big difference between a book that's going to last and a book you're going to have to replace is the stitching.
The offset printing for us is a big deal, right? So
it's crisper, but for example, I use Mixum for my little stuff. Here, let me grab this one. This is is that OSR? No, that's TFT.
Oh, by the way, but Bill, your question, TrollLord sold their publishing division, I believe.
Where's my stuff?
But they had that going for a while, but I believe they don't own a publishing house anymore.
Interesting.
Like I said, I know I'm not that tapped into those guys. I figured you would be.
So this is my OSE solo that David Pulver wrote, and it was first in TFT. But I do this at Mixum, and they've had some problems, but they seem to be pulling out, and they're starting to get better.
Mixum's pretty good to deal with. Well, the problem is they got so busy, they started.
Yeah, they started to kill the quality control. Yeah, but for Saddle Stitch, This is fantastic. I can order. It starts to get to a reasonable cost of a print run at 25 copies, even 5. So what I do for my international fulfillment, I do a second small print run in Mixam UK and ship to Games Quest, and that goes to the EU. You can't do that with an. Oh, actually, that's not entirely true because I kind of sort of do it with an offset print run. But for a project, I'm not that big, right? The most number of books that I ever printed intelligently was 600. My Dragon Heresy book, I printed 1,500, and I still have 1,000 of them in the warehouse. Oops. The only reason I still have them in the warehouse is because the warehousing is free. But the offset print run is, you get the great paper choices, the binding is better, you can choose your own boards, so everything can be just luxurious, and the tactile feel of a well-produced book is, everyone notices when you pick up a high-quality book. Sure. I'm with you. Whenever I can, I like to go offset because the luxurious feel of the higher quality papers and boards and stuff is worth it to me, because even if it doesn't sell quite as well, I can sit there and go like this.
Exactly.
Well, if I may, I print mine. This is all POD,
right. And
it's got the orange, the orange bind and everything. 128 page book. I can sell this for $25 and still make a profit. And it's hardcover.
Yeah, absolutely.
So in terms of, POD does have its place. I don't have any page page markers or anything like that. But
yeah, we've
But Joe, what happens if you ran a Kickstarter and have to have 1,000 of those?
Well, he could still do it that way.
It all goes through DriveThru.
Can I tell you what happened with Frog God? We do all the printing in China because it's cheaper, and we do such a volume of printing, we have to do it in China. Otherwise, we wouldn't be able to make any money. The problem is during the pandemic, there was horrific issues with getting shipments to China, where some of our Kickstarters were over a year late, not because of our fault, but because we couldn't get the books. So because of this, and because we didn't know how the pandemic was going to affect this going forward, we have tried to find publishers in the United States that can help us out. The problem is, so did everybody else. And so you have this limited amount of publishers now. They're absolutely swamped with work. Well, so what are they going to do? They're going to raise their prices because obviously now they can pick and choose. I mean, they don't have to, they were grateful in the beginning to get clients because China took all their big jobs. Well, now these same people that brought their big jobs to China are trying to find American publishers. There's just not enough publishers right now in the United States to do this. And to do it cheap enough to, until China really gets back up and running where they're reliable, which you're not sure, because look what's going on over there now with the pandemic. They have everything shutting down again. They say what 70-80% of the people there have COVID now. It's just as bad as it was 2 years ago. And so until there's actually more publishing companies, this is going to be a constant issue for publishers. We do all our Indiegogo printing in the United States, because usually that's like probably 1,500 units, 2,000 units. That's not, but for the bigger stuff, you have to send it to China. We still have to send it the larger books to China.
I would seriously look into Eastern Europe, Estonia, Latvia, I couldn't believe it, but there's a company called New Energy in Amsterdam that has very competitive prices, and the Atlantic Ocean is a lot smaller than Pacific Ocean, and the East Coast ports are much easier to get through. They're not easy, and they still suck. But
there's a few companies up in Canada which are a lot more reasonable. The United States also.
Oh, really?
Shockingly.
Yeah.
And then we're dealing with one in. We're talking to you about a larger product. I think it's in Norway. So
yeah. The Scandinavians. One of the things that's kind of cool about I don't know if any of us qualify because we don't live there, but the government will buy 1,000 copies of almost any book to distribute to their public library system. So it's like the baseline. How many?
I guarantee you, Radji's aren't in the public library shelves over there.
Oh my God! Mommy, what's this?
Yeah.
Why there's tentacles everywhere?
I can't remember who was saying, but there was in a way there was a minimum floor for order number, right? You know, like I've told anybody, right? You know, if I could start routinely ordering 1,000 copies of a book instead of a couple hundred, you know, my life changes quite a bit.
Well, that's the whole issue, right? Is quantity, and then, like I said, what you want to do with them. Yeah. But it's I know I started a rabbit hole here with this off our topic, but I thought it was kind of interesting.
Hey, can
I get back on topic for just what I want to throw? I want to throw a what if out there, and it's a rhetorical what if. But what if WotC had led with this? What if January 1st, this is their press release, not, oh, by the way, we're going to bend you over and we're going to hang you without lube. I mean, that's what their initial release was.
Well,
right?
the hobby would have lost their mind. They lost their mind, but in a good way.
Yeah, in a good way. Right, hero time. Just would have been hero time, Mike. I mean, although people still would question, right? It's like, why are you even talking about this? But
the narrative is 100% reversed on that. It's a 180 narrative. They're the heroes. Oh my God, you got to go see the movie, man. Let's support these guys. This is amazing. Not only
see the movie, but right, it's look. You got to look at the picture here. I mean, the 50th anniversary for D&D or whatever, right, is next year, right? There's for one D&D. I mean, all that's coming out. That would have been putting the correct foot forward, and not landing in a pile of manure. So, yeah.
So I mean, here's the thing. There's only 9 of us in here, but how many people we know who's not really involved in the hobby, but really do like D&D or play it? I know I can think of 12 people myself. Joe, how many people you know that not really connected but like playing D&D?
Me?
Well, both of you, both Joes.
Easily a dozen.
Yeah. Yeah, most of everybody else I play with is not this way involved. They heard about this a little bit.
If Wizard just led with this, we would have all talked this up, engaged our own social network, and it would have had a far more outsized impact. You know, could have been easily in the tens of thousands of people who would say, "Well, maybe I got to go see this movie," after what they did.
Instead, my mom sitting there asked me, "What's this OGL stuff I hear about?" They absolutely reversed what should have been a great 2 years. They're coming out with a new rules system, hoping to bring in millions of new people to play those rules. Anniversary. Instead,
so
first off, it's been.
After we let Mike with his shitty internet service. I think what that leads into, what's kind of interesting though is one D&D's coming out, right? 1.0A and the SRD released with it is all 5.0 and call it earlier, right?
Right.
So what's going to happen moving forward? You know, are they going to want people to produce third-party stuff for 6.0 or 5.1?
No, I don't think they're going to want them at all.
I doubt it.
Oh,
that's I think the more interesting.
Eric has something to say.
All right,
they probably don't.
Be within their own closed environment. It's going to be their own closed environment. It's going to be like the DM's Guild. They're going to want to take.
You're right.
They're going to take half their money, and yes, you can use their IP, but they will also have the right to revoke. The new OGL will not have that. Oh, we're going to revoke your right. No, you're going to have that morality clause. You're going to have the inclusionary clause. But by the way, as a side note, every time Wizards of the Coast makes a statement on D&D Beyond about the OGL, in the first 2 or 3 paragraphs, they always mention it's because we want to make a more inclusive game that we are fucking you in the ass. That's apparently what inclusion means to them. And I fail to see how that it's like
they even mentioned in the press release today. We still care about fucking you in this way, but we're just not going to do it right now.
We're going to make sure we include more people in the process. Therefore, we're inclusive. It's like they're trying to ring a bell with the word without actually doing any of the work involved.
Well, that was their half-hearted attempt, Eric, to try and save face with the by sticking to their one little theme all the way through. I mean, That's just PR 101. Yeah. They're just trying to follow that string, which they think resonates with some percentage of the people. And but I don't think it does at all.
If 6th edition is going to be so much as their direction is going to be all digital, all online, the whole shebang, right? And yeah, they're going to have a DM's Guild version for, here's you put out your PDF or your print or whatever the fuck they do. But if they're not giving these people the rights to produce content so that it's not just a PDF and print it out or use it like that, but it actually you could buy their module, adventure, whatever you call it, and they could also buy the version of it that goes into their digital platform. If they're not going to allow that, then people aren't going to really get the bang for the buck out of it. Because who's going to buy a PDF for a digitally based game, an RPG like a video game? Who's going to buy a PDF to play it on pen and paper style, right? It doesn't make any sense to produce for it. So unless they allow full access to produce content for the digital platform as well.
EverQuest.
Oh shit!
I
used EverQuest.
All right, who cast the sleeps the freeze spell?
Yeah, you froze up there, Joe. What was that? You had EverQuest what?
No, so I was saying I used to own the EverQuest RPG.
Okay,
yeah, but you're the one. You're the one guy they sold it to.
I bought it.
Yeah, exactly.
Never really read it, but it was my bathroom reading.
I didn't know.
But I mean, one of the things about the virtual tabletop, or one of the things that people email me about is when I release JPEG files of the maps in my adventures, so that people could drag them into VTTs. And when I said I'm going to do a Foundry module, I talked Steve Jackson Games into letting me do a VT to do digital support for my version, because I can take risks and they can't. People really, really like that. And ultimately what I'm selling to people is a little bit of idea, and a lot of you don't have to do the work yourself.
Hey,
and that next step to now you just drag it in and hear the monsters and whatever, with the number of people that are now playing with all of their old college buddies spread throughout the world on a VTT with their check. I mean, there's real value in providing that kind, and that's going to be a whole new skill set for some of us. But there's real value in providing that kind of time saver, right? That's ultimately what you're buying. I could do this myself, but I don't have to because, Joe did it for me. There's value there.
I have a James Raggy story. Now, we all like James. He's a crazy guy. He does great creative work. But so I did some maps. I do maps for him periodically. So I was working on one of the map projects, and then I sent him in, and he says, Rob, and this was back in 2013 when VTTs were just starting to come into their own. I said, Rob, why are the damn S's on the side of the walls? Oh, so people can use them for VTTs. If you put the secret door like the traditional way, they see there's a secret door there and it spoils it. That's bullshit, Rob. Change it. I want the S back on. I want the S the traditional way. And he wasn't particularly rude, but he had a strong opinion about it. And I said, okay, you're paying me. So I did that. But I thought that, people just didn't get how important VTTs were related. So, if you look at my stuff, I always make them VTT ready.
Just today, I got an email from someone saying, the next time you do your VTT maps, Doug, please have a separate layer for the annotations, so that they can put the room numbers and the monster and the secret. They just want the player map to be basically blank. And I was like, in the future, I can do my art direction that way. I can't retroactively go back a year and a half and unlayer or, turn something. And I mean, I expect technically I could spend the time and move the objects to a different layer and all that stuff. But, I would rather shave my head with a cheese grater than do that. Thanks.
There's a great TED talk by Malcolm Gladwell about how change takes place over time between corporations doing similar things. And he looked at ice productions. Like at first, it was people cutting ice out of a pond. And then it was people delivering ice to your house to put in an ice box. And then it was the people who made the refrigerator able to actually make its own ice. Those three people, those three phases never talked to each other about what they were doing. All that happened is somebody came along and said, I can do that better than those guys are doing it. And they just completely wholesale replaced it, what they were doing. Steve Jobs did the same thing to the entire record industry back in 2000. You know, you come to bam, a totally new way of doing it. The other previous way is wiped out. So I fully expect that somebody's going to come along who can actually have competence in what they're doing, and they could clean up. They could develop some kind of VTT solution that's just going to crush whatever WotC has and blow them away. And then WotC's never going to see it coming, because those people are going to be thinking about it in a totally different way, the way that entrepreneurs think about stuff, rather than the way that these ivory tower corporate types look at the way they solve problems.
Now, I will say,
isn't that what happened? That's what's happening with AI art. That AI art is doing that very thing right now. The art world is absolutely changing 100% in the next 5 years. It's going to, you can't stop it. The AI art is going to take over regular art. It's just going to do it. And the people who are complaining about it, I understand, I know why they're complaining about it, but they're the blacksmith complaining that people are driving cars everywhere, and I'm moving horses over here. It's just whether people want to.
So without necessarily disagreeing about the end state, I think you're going to have to get past a class action lawsuit first. And the reason that I think that it's going to be a bigger deal than a pebble is that I read somewhere that someone had shown that some of the training images came from somebody's private medical records, and that gets the U.S. federal government involved. And then it's an entirely different ball of wax.
They're going to work past Douglas. They'll go past that. You don't. It's due to a fundamental misconception about what actually AI art is, and it would be a whole show to explain it. But I've had to explain to people who are experts on AI art. It's not stealing other art. It's not taking other art. It's actually creating art.
It's the
trend. You don't have to enter. You don't have to do it that way. And once they eliminate that, then there's no barriers to it.
The basic issue is the model. It's not like a JPEG. No, JPEG or PNG, which is, you look at the actual data. It doesn't look like anything. You have to interpret it, but that's not what the model is. I mean, it's literally the concept. They figured out in one particular area how we learn and made software based on it that proved to be very powerful and flexible.
All right, I got to jump in real quick because our artist and cartographer, one of our great guys, Wonky, is in the chat there. And I'm not logged in, so I can't say, Wonky, your job is safe with us. We're not going to AI art you out. So just make sure Keelan is all good. I want to make sure he knows that.
Now,
because the younger Barsh knows about this stuff. I don't know shit about it.
So with respect, though, I mean, I do have a doctorate in engineering, and I worked with a company that uses machine learning for a lot of things. So some of the best players in machine learning, at least for data analysis, were my friends. So okay. I don't feel that I am unskilled in describing the technology. The evolutionary algorithms and stuff are fine. They're safe. They're whatever. But you're going to have to get over the fact that a lot of these companies just pillaged IP-protected copyright art to train their system. And some of those were federally protected images that you're not allowed to share without consent.
But you can't show
the only reason I bring that up, and I'm going to drive through this, is that it brings the U.S. government as an amicus brief on the side of the people who said you can't do this shit, and that it was done unlawfully.
It's going to happen, though. It's going to happen. It's going to happen anyway.
As I said, I'm not going to disagree about the destination.
Yeah.
Well, here's the thing.
But I think that the process is going to be a great deal more complicated than it seems.
The AR art may be a tool, but if you just like if the human artist goes and paints John Doe's painting, which he created in 1990, replicates it exactly, he's guilty of copyright violation. AR, the generative programs can be in violation of copyright by what they produce if it's considered a derivative work. And just as Doug which I wasn't aware of, but if it starts producing medical images that are protected under HIPAA, then it's liable just as somebody.
But I guess the point I didn't explain very much. The point I'm getting art is going to be
every time that Mike is about to make a serious point, the internet grabs out.
Yeah, when Mike talk shit, we can always hear him.
No, I was going to say you're not going to be able to point to where AI art begins and where human art. That's what's going to eventually happen, and that's what's going to be the point. Is when you can't tell.
Now,
here's the thing, though. If there's a lawsuit going on, and it's a class action lawsuit, depending on how it gets ruled, and we never know because courts are half the time it's a coin flip. They can make a ruling that AI art, no matter how it's done, is not copyrightable. And then at which point then, unless you're doing it for your own amusement, it's no longer a profitable activity. Already the leaning is towards AI art that unless you are making significant changes to what is generated by the AI, the art is not, it doesn't have, your code words aren't enough to make it artwork.
Copyrightable. Yes.
Copyrightable. If it's not copyrightable, it means you can't, anybody can use it. It's basically public domain. So I think that this lawsuit is not going to outlaw AI art, but it may say, hey, anything generated with this is not copyrightable. And then people are going to go, well, fuck, it's a tool, but it's not a tool.
I got an idea for a contest for the tavern, Eric. Okay.
What?
We have Rob generate AI scripted modules and see if he can generate, and then we'll publish them, and then for the other module, we'll have somebody sanitize a recent 5th edition release, and we'll see which one is better, the AI generated module or the 5th edition module.
Well, that's interesting you brought up that, Greg. It's interesting you brought it up, Greg.
That's what I want to know. Is it a Wizards of the Coast sanitized adventure, or is it a third party?
Yeah. Wizards of the Coast or AI.
Listen, we don't
one
even
is better.
Now, I want to bring up something. It is AI related, but it's not art. So I think the bigger impact for the hobby is going to be ChatGPT, and where it's not so much it's going to be able to write modules on the fly. It's going to take random table to a whole new level. Because, we always, look at Traveler, look at all these games that have a history of using procedural generation and random tables as not just, an aid, but it actually goes to the heart. It's part of the experience of playing the game. And I think, one of the big things that publishers will have to grapple with, how do they incorporate ChatGPT-like technology into their line just like we're grappling with how to make VTT modules to sell as alongside of our book. Because if you had a ChatGPT instance that you could say, okay, here is a ChatGPT, it has our rule book in it, you can ask it any question, you can even have it do X and Y, Z procedure, it can be your ultimate assistant DM. The publishers who are able to do that effectively, they're going to have an edge on their competition.
How is
David Pulver actually asked?
How what?
Well, I say ChatGPT is not that much different than pulling out Matt Finch's Tome of Adventure Design and rolling.
Oh no! You haven't seen what there. I've been on the 10-foot pole forum. A guy did an entire module on ChatGPT. It didn't do, now, mind you, it's a tool. It didn't do it at one fell swoop. Instead, he showed you how you can, starting out with a prompt and then work your way through it. And then at the end of the game, you had a module that was random generated. It was coherent. I mean, I wouldn't say it's a AAA module, but it wasn't
more like a WotC module.
Okay, more like a WotC module.
David Pulver asked ChatGPT to spit out a GURPS modern soldier or something. And it wasn't entirely coherent because it did some things that aren't really allowed by the rules, but it was there and it knew enough, and it knew that. I mean, this is GURPS. This is not D&D. So somebody put the rule books and the materials in, and it was able to spit out a coherent character. And what was the other thing that it could do that it did? There were some really impressive things. And what some of the people that I'm talking to are using it for is overcoming writer's block. Like they'll say, "Oh, I need a description of a room or this or that or whatever," and it'll just spit out stuff. You're like, "Oh, okay, I can work with that. I can edit that into something that is useful for me." So, you know,
Humans are going to have.
And the other thing it does.
We're going to have to do things better. Humans are going to have to up our game, man. I mean,
the other thing it can do, I didn't do this on a large scale, but I took some of my campaign document, fed it in there, and started asking questions. And I didn't actually really like to say create new content. I was more like asking questions about the stuff I already written, and it found connections that I have forgotten about and stuff. You know, it says, you know, okay, tell me who is the Lord of Blackkeep, and what does he have any relationship with anything in the Overlord staff? And it found a reference that I made 30 years or 20 years ago. This one sentence I had this document, and holy shit, you could put your campaign on there and not forget a thing.
With a smartphone, we all became cybernetic organisms. We just had a very low bandwidth between the cybernetic part of us and the human part of us. The interface is shitty. The Chat GPT just makes the interface better. It starts to work better so that it's building off of what you're putting into it. It's giving it back to you. You know, this is just the future of these technologies is going to be more and more integration. You know, Google screwed up Google Glass. Somebody's going to come along with Shadowrun style glasses that are going to have all kinds of crap loaded into it. It's just a matter of time. All these things are just going to move us into more of a machine plus
the next virtue signal
environment.
Well, the next virtue signal, instead of companies announcing they won't use AI artists, we will also have no more. We have only humans writing our adventures. These are only human written. These are human illustrated and human written.
But then you're going to have a definition, just like with organic food, where it used to be a certain thing meant you're organic. Now you can have all kinds of shit in there and still be organic. You're going to have human interaction, but humans could have used it for research or background or prompts, or you know what I mean. It's a whole different definition again. It's bullshit.
You know, one of the fun things that would that Wonky Art in the chat says. Bad at grammar and punctuation. Maybe it'll save my own shortcomings. I can almost guarantee you, I could feed a manuscript to GPT and say something like, "Fix this according to the AP style guide."
Well,
and whatever Strunk's rules of grammar and whatever, and it would probably do it.
So you guys, some of you here may not know it. I am 50% deaf, and it's a nerve damage, so it got in my speech processing a little bit. So trying to listen to all of you on YouTube it gets tiring for me because it's harder for me to follow along. So oftentimes I will bring up the transcript that YouTube has, and I've been doing this for a month now. I would take that transcript and take it without the timestamp, feed it to ChatGPT, and I would say, format the following with proper periods and paragraph break. And by the way, I had to say format, or otherwise it would rewrite it, and I didn't want it to rewrite it. I just wanted to format it, and it produces a transcript, like a professional transcript out of the video. It's amazing.
Shit, I can try that.
Joe, maybe you could use one of these chats, the GPT things, to make Blood Island.
Eric, if you do that, it can only handle 250 lines at a time.
Yeah, it's already 30, 40 pages. But yeah, this is somebody said I prefer the Chicago manual style. Funny you say this. I'm not going to follow it. I was the kid on the block who knew how to install everybody's VCR. I went house to house when they all came out, and all the neighbors. I was the kid who went there to figure out that level. I was that techie geek, right? I had the Commodore, little shitty VIC-20 early, before anybody. And I was that nerd. And now I'm to the point where I'm like, man, I'll tell you what, Chicago manual style. Last weekend, I went and bought a double album of Chicago Blues, an LP. In a used record store. This is where my mind is now. I'm done with the high tech stuff. I even my YouTube videos, I'm not skilled with low tech on that, but I just keep it simple. I don't know. I don't think I'm gonna follow along. I just hit that age where I stop. With the new high tech shit. I think I'm done.
Well, that's
You've
the
learned
key
everything.
to learning new systems. I can't learn new RPGs that are anymore. If they're more complicated than like I don't know, was it index card RPG? I can't, man. You know, it's like too much. I can't handle the complexity. So, and I'm gonna give a fair warning to folks. We're probably gonna wrap this up soon because we are past the witching hour. I have 8 of us left. We've already had one drop out, and I know others have things to do. So I'm going to give everybody one last chance to make a point, and then we're going to wrap it. So
and throw out your plug for all your whatever you do, whatever you have.
Yes. I was like, plug? We do plugs in this show?
Plugs. Get out.
You know, let's go right around the room. So we're going to start with Rob.
Okay, so guys, keep playing, of course, playing, promoting and publishing. Just do your jam. We're gonna be here for the long term.
Joe Bloch.
I mean, this is a win. Let's take it. You know, I see people online saying we should be gracious in victory. No, I'm gonna freaking gloat. We beat them. I'm proud of that.
All right, Bill.
Thanks for having me, Eric. I appreciate that, first of all. But I think this is it's a victory for everyone. It's a victory for us as publishers. It's a victory for consumers. It's a victory for our customers who've been around all of us. You know, we all have different customer bases to some degree. I think it's been a great thing for everybody, and I look forward to see what's going to happen down the road because I'm always a glass half full guy, and I'm kind of hoping WotC learn from this and we get some better stuff out of them. I mean, I don't want to just hate on WotC. I just don't think it's not where I want to be. I'm kind of hoping maybe they turn a corner here and they do something interesting or better for the hobby too, because it will be helpful. It's not helpful to have them not do the right thing all the time.
Optimist. Okay. Remember, folks, Pacesetter Games, optimism.
Innovate, baby.
There you go. Bad Mike. Anything?
North Texas RPG Con, Bill Barsh is a guest. Keelan Halverson's a guest too this year, by the way. It's first year. So check out ntrpgcon.com. Now, I think everybody needs to drink this in and remember it, because when your grandkids are in college someday and they're in marketing class and they go, Grandpa, I know you used to play that Dungeons and Dragons. You remember when this happened? You're going to say, oh, yeah. Because this will be taught in books, that marketing disaster 101. This is how
right after New Coke.
No, the movie's going to be 3 weeks in January.
New Coke wasn't as bad because after New Coke came out and it flopped, people went back to drinking old Coke and it's fine. They have. I don't know if it's 10%. I don't know if it's 25%, but they have lost part of their audience forever. That's never going to buy WotC products and purchase it.
I think we need to start a poll.
I love the fact that it's going to give Eric and I are going to have shows for the next year on this, so it's great for us. We don't have to rely on idiots like Justin Lanasa to get the show. We can talk about idiots at WotC.
Yeah, and I don't need the OGL to do it. Doug, what do you got?
So 2 weeks later than I wanted it, but probably sometime in the next couple of weeks, I'll be firing off a new project. A couple hundred non-player characters and monsters for Old School Essentials. I've done it for the fantasy trip, and once you get past a couple of hundred cards, it's a resource, not a crutch. You just pull out random guy to interact with. So that's kind of my next old school thing. The fact that OGL 1.0A is going to be what it always has been means that my plans for the next 2 years to start to return to Dragon Heresy and my Viking setting and bring those into the OSR, and also my own 5e Fantasy Heartbreaker, because that's what it is. But those 1,000 copies of my book that's sitting in a warehouse, this was my ticket.
There you go.
I got 50 grand worth of potential revenue in the future sitting there. But no, I think, it's been an amazing turn. We're trying to find, this is the tabletop equivalent of the Challenger disaster, right? Where everyone remembers where you were. I mean, I was staring at this on my phone saying, did I just read this right? Yeah, it looks like I read this right. This, you don't win these much. And so when you do, you kind of want to do a little dance in the end zone a little bit. But I think that what's going to wind up happening, and I know I'm going this way, is although my next couple of works will be OGL 1.0A, because there's no other alternative. As soon as there is, there's no point in, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. I'm not getting it twice. This is. I'll find an independent license and stick with it.
You got
Creative Commons? Have an alternative. Creative Commons now.
Does Creative? I don't want to. We're ending, but does Creative Commons allow you to protect some of the material? Can you say this is under CC and this isn't?
You don't even have to make open content. It is CC BY. All you have to do is credit Wizard. You can choose to make it much of it as open or as closed as you want.
Right.
It's not share alike.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Look it up, Doug. You'll see.
The one they chose is not share alike. Yeah.
Right.
No. I'm sorry. That's not my question. If I release one of my books under Creative Commons, is the whole thing open? Because one of the nice things about the OGL is you could say, this stuff is my setting and it's mine, and if you want it, you have to license it from me. You have to talk. This other stuff, you can do whatever you want with.
They have a FAQ on it. Yes, you can.
Okay, I'll find it.
But there's no standard way of doing it. That's the difference. But you can, and they tell you how to do it.
Okay. So you're going to have to protect yourself in that case. It's a little different than the OGL. It is a little bit different as far as product identity.
We can do another show on this.
Yeah, that's a whole other show.
I guarantee you that Rob and I I'm going to have Rob back, and we'll have to do a special on this. So
okay,
but that'll be pre-recorded. But trust me, folks, Rob's going to be chomping at the bit. Greg
Christopher. I publish under Chubby Funster Games. My kind of main product is Ambition and Avarice. I have a lot of pitches, but Joethelawyer's point that he thinks is the best equipment list in the OSR makes me very proud. So
I'm an equipment whore. I know my equipment.
Yeah,
he's a shopper, I tell you.
But I think my kind of final message here, I think a lot of us, being older guy, I think I'm the youngest one here, tend to think of it as the hobby going, aging with us. I think, like Bill said, we have to be optimistic and looking for the future ourselves as well. And I see role-playing games not as a dying art, but as a fantastic new way for older, especially men, who have men in our society have big problems with loneliness and social isolation after a certain age. I think it's fantastic that you can get together groups of guys every week and have good social interaction. It's great. It's just good for people to play. It's way better than sitting around binge watching Netflix every night. It's a fantastic hobby. The idea that we're going the way of the dodo, I think, is wrong. And that's my final message.
Joe?
The final message I got to say is just going back to the one thing somebody mentioned before. This whole new Coke, Classic Coke, was a big fucking conspiracy. What they wanted to fucking do was switch from sugar to the corn syrup, right? Because once they do that, they didn't want the things to be out next to each other on the shelves. They wanted a gap so you couldn't tell that it tasted differently, right? So when they switched to corn syrup, it's all a big plan because corn syrup masks the feeling in your stomach that you're full and therefore you drink more. That is the entire point of the new Coke, the Classic Coke method they did. That's why they did it. That's how I'll end it.
There's actually a really good documentary on that. I can't remember the name, but it explains the whole new Coke thing, and Joe's not wrong on that.
No, every
conspiracy is better than real Coke. So
someday Rob will believe me about my moon. There's a conspiracy because
they also wanted to taste more like Pepsi because Pepsi was winning in taste tests. But they didn't realize that the taste tests that Pepsi was doing were sips, and what people like sips of Pepsi, what they didn't like was a whole can of Pepsi. And so what they didn't want was a can of Coke that tasted like Pepsi.
For what it's worth, it's a very self-serving book, but there's a book called The End of Marketing as We Know It by Zalman something, I think. But it's called The End of Marketing as We Know It, and he was the guy who led the New Coke from the marketing end. And there's a lot of interesting insight on Coke as an identity rather than what you taste as well. So it's much like I'm a role player. There's some lessons in that about what you're messing with when you say we're going to change something, right? Because people were really pissed that Coke became New Coke, not because of the taste, because objectively it tasted better.
Mm-hmm.
But people were Coke drinkers, damn it, and we're role players, damn it. And you mess with that, and it's amazing what happens. The same outrage that said, nope, now it's classic Coke, and now it's just Coke, damn it, is what just happened here. And it's the same thing when you misunderstand why your fan base cares about you.
Rob, you are now, if you agree with that, you're now only 3.5 steps away from me believing when I tell you that the moon thing was a big fucking hoax. You're getting there, Rob. You will be there soon.
We're not going to dive down that rabbit hole. Now, I'm going to make a few quick
The Earth is flat. I never said it wasn't round.
It's made of fucking
If the Earth
cheese.
is flat, then
Oh, no, the
telescope
moon's
mounts
made of
wouldn't
cheese.
work.
There we go. I knew I could get him on a rant before this was over.
We got another hour.
No más rentas. No más rentas.
Eric, you better get control here.
Yeah, I'll break out the side.
Assert dominance.
I'll take a few whacks across people's backs. Don't worry about it. I know how not to bruise. Folks, we hit 108 live stream viewers today. Our previous high was 78. Our average used to be like, 30, 35. So thank you all. Thanks to everybody that you see on screen. Thanks to Greg Gillespie. I blame Bad Mike for not pimping Greg's book. Mike, pimp his book real quick.
Megadon Monster Book Manual. If you want monsters, old school monsters, great book. I'm enamored of it. And by the way, the Lightning Source did the printing. They did a damn good job. This is really, really well bound.
Well, they don't fuck up. Not saying it happens often. Just saying.
They dorked up my first 2 retail orders, and I've never seen them again. So I've moved away from them real quick.
I remember ordering a game book, and I got the book, and it was complete. But I had another half of some random, adult, a sex book. In the back.
Hey.
I was just like,
that's what we call a bonus.
Yeah, no.
It was kind of role playing.
Huge thanks. We picked up about 10 subscribers during the live stream. So huge thank you to everybody who is a subscriber. If you are waiting on me with emails, I am like days behind. So I haven't.
Eric, before you go, Eric, we have a reminder here. He did say, I think there's going to be a giveaway, right? And we have to do that before the show.
That was Wednesday. We gave away.
Oh, that was Wednesday. Okay.
We gave away giveaways Wednesday, man. Okay. Listen, it isn't every live stream I do giveaways. I only have so much money to give away.
Spoiled public now.
I haven't gotten to those emails. I haven't gotten to a number of OSR Christmas emails from the last day. So every day I thought I was going to have a chance to do so. Personal minor family-ish emergencies popped up that took hours of time with low-end drama, just lots of time. So I'm hoping tomorrow I can squeeze out some. Again, folks, everybody's been in this live stream. 63 still looking at our ugly faces. Thank you. God bless you. Be safe, be well. God bless. Roll those dice. Roll them well. You are the reason why we had this discussion today. If people didn't give a shit, if the community didn't rise up, and whether it was canceled accounts, whether it was Hasbro losing stock price, it was because the number of people upset about the OGL made it as far as like NPR, CNBC today, talking about the OGL fiasco and how Wizards of the Coast / Hasbro was turning away their own customers.
And I only bring this up because Matt Jackson in our text chat was talking about this is waste of time. Filling out the survey mattered. It matters. If you have a chance to fill out surveys, fill them out.
Even if they don't listen to your words, they are still looking at those numbers that get generated. But apparently they were listening to the words. Who figured that one out? They closed that survey a week early.
Yeah. Because when you have 90%, Eric, it's not going to go too far.
It's only going to get worse. You don't want it to get worse. Like, oh, hey, look at those results.
It's like the Velma ratings.
Even the modern media could call that election.
Oh my God,
the Velma ratings. Oh my God.
I don't know. It's kind of close. It's 92 to 8%. There could be a big swing coming up in the when we count
the western side of the country hasn't reported back yet.
Oh God!
We have hanging shads in Florida, boys and girls.
I remember where I was when we had that conversation. Holy shit! All right, folks. God bless. Laters. Live stream
There you
tomorrow night, 8 p.m. With my wife, Rach. Guess what? I'm sure part of this conversation for Gamers Health is going to be stress relief.
Yeah.
Oh,
nice.
Better than taking that 2.5 hour haven't gone yet pee. Go figure.
Oh, ouch.
We're all getting old, so
That's stress relief.
That's stress relief. All right, folks. God bless. Good night.